If you're looking to start blogging or just looking for tips on improving your current blogging, you found the perfect training video series. My name is Keith Hearn from Creative Online School, and I'm going to be your instructor for this course. Now, I've been working in web design for over 20 years now, and I've taught hundreds of students in both the classroom and online. In this course, we're going to learn just about everything that you need to know about building a blog, from installing WordPress to finding the right host and domain name to writing articles, installing themes and plugins, as well as how to get your articles seen and read, as well as to make money from them. Now, don't feel obligated to watch every one of these videos here. Find just the things that you're looking for help with and watch just those. You can always come back later if you want to get information on different things or learn the next steps in improving your blog. So I hope you're excited about getting started. Let's begin. Alright, so there's a lot of different things that come into play when it comes to building your WordPress website. There's a couple different options that you have. First of all, you can always go to WordPress.com. Now, this is a good way to start learning how to blog because you can set up a free blog in here. What you can do with WordPress.com is you just simply sign up and you get a subdomain domain name. You can always connect a actual domain name. We'll get into all that later here, but you'll get your own little link within WordPress and you can start blogging. You can also get a good feel for how WordPress works and if you like it or not. Now, it's not the exact same version that we're going to be working in the next few videos here, but this is a very similar version of it. Now, being WordPress, it should be kind of the same, but again, they have their own limitations and things that they offer for free, whereas the full version that you install on your hosting has a lot more options and it's a lot more robust. So remember, you may want to start out with something like WordPress.com. Now, maybe you just don't like WordPress for whatever reason. There are other blogging platforms that are a little bit more community-based that I would say maybe go ahead and get started with and just practice from before you start spending any actual time and money on buying domain names and hosting and things like that. So there are other sites like Wix.com. This is a great place where you can build a free website. You can also blog within it. Very similar to how WordPress.com works, where you can create your site. You have basically a subdomain, which means it could be something like yourname.wix.com. So it's not like a full domain name, but it's like you're within their community there. You're using their domain name to create your website. Now, again, just like WordPress.com, they also offer where you can purchase a domain name and connect it to this site. I don't remember if there's a fee involved in that. I know there are different levels where you can get into the paid version of Wix. I think they give you more hosting space and things like that, but this is a good platform to use as well. Another one that I really like, and I actually use still, even though I use WordPress for my blogging, is Medium.com. Now, this is a kind of an open source news website, but you can also contribute your own articles. Now, to get listed into the home page here, if your article is good enough and gets enough comments and things like that, you can see a lot of these are, well, actually some of these were written, a year ago or whatever, 2 years ago, several years ago. But again, these are some of the articles that are doing really good on their site. Now, what you can do is create your own account where you can log in and be your own blogger, and you can drive traffic to your blog and things like that. A lot of cool things you can do, but again, it kind of gives you the basic feeling of how blogging works and make sure that you are liking the way that it works, liking blogging. Some people think that they get into blogging and they're like, oh, this is going to be great, and then they get into it and like a month later they just get bored with it. And having a free site like this can be a great way to kind of feel it out a little bit, see if you like it. If not, you move on. No loss, nothing, no money lost on that kind of stuff. As opposed to actually purchasing a domain name and hosting and things like that, where you're going to be spending a little bit of money and some time setting it up only to find out you don't like it later on. It's a little bit more of an investment. So I kind of suggest starting with one of these if you're not really sure if it's something you want to do or not. Remember, you can always take the copy and the content that you write for these blogs and just shut down this site and copy it over to a WordPress site later on if you wanted to. Those are all options. But again, just to maybe kind of get started, this is something that I would consider doing. Alright, so we're going to be talking about installing WordPress onto an actual paid hosting environment. So this is going to be your own website on your own kind of server going on. And to do that, you need two different things. You're going to need a domain name, which is like the address that people type in to actually get to your site. And the other is going to be hosting. Now, there's a lot of different providers for both. You've got people who just offer domain names. You've got people who just offer hosting, and a lot of people that offer both. Now, there are some things to consider before just reaching out and finding a company and just purchasing something. It's not super complex, and a lot of these sites will help kind of work you through it. And for the most part, there's really no wrong answers, but there are things to look out for. Now, with hosting, you do get what you pay for. With domain names, you really just want to find the cheapest one because they're all the same. Once you have the domain name, there's really no support that it gives you that maybe one offers a little bit more of something than the other. And to an extent, there is where they can maybe provide some kind of like site lock where they are hiding the information about you being the registrar for that domain name. Little things like that maybe, but for the most part, I would just say just try to find the cheapest domain name. All right, so let's start with the basics here. You can go to a site like GoDaddy, although it's not my favorite company, but it is a good provider because they do have fairly inexpensive domain names and they offer hosting. And sometimes when you purchase them both together, maybe you get a little bit of a discount, or they just kind of work together a little bit easier if you're new at this. If you're an experienced web developer or have done this kind of thing before, maybe this will be old hat to you and you can just choose whatever company you want to go with. But for the most part, having both the domain name and the hosting on the same account is best. GoDaddy does have really good tech support as far as I'm concerned. I've had to call them plenty of times, and they've always been able to fix the problems. And by having the domain name and the hosting together in the same location, they can help troubleshoot things a little bit easier. But again, it's not necessary. You can always purchase a domain name at one place and the hosting at another place. Now, when it comes to domain names, what's really cool is you can go ahead and just in the very top of the home page here, go ahead and just type in whatever it is that you want to find. So maybe I want to find my name, keithhearnblog.com, and I can do a search for that domain name to see if it's available. Now, one thing that people do a lot of times is they'll just open up a new tab and they'll say, keithhearnblog.com, and they'll type it in and say, oh, this site can't be reached. Well, that must mean it's available. It doesn't always mean it's available. Some people may purchase a domain name and just hold on to it and not connect it to anything, or maybe they connect it to a site and the site kind of hosting goes away and things get all funky on this end, so it looks like there's no site. This does not mean that the domain name is available. You need to go to a site like GoDaddy and do a search for it, and they will tell you if it's available or not. So you can see right here, I looked it up. It says keithhearnblog.com is available for just $2.99. Wow, what a bargain. It will also give me suggestions on some other domain names that I may want to purchase. Now, this is kind of an upsell that they do. Personally, unless you're like a huge brand name, Coca-Cola, Walmart, Apple, whatever, I would not worry about purchasing all these other versions of your domain name. There's really no need to. People always question me on that, and I always say, unless you are a major brand or you're planning on becoming a major brand, don't worry about it. Nobody's going to try to become the next keithhearnblog.net and overtake my blog and have everybody think that they are me, kind of a thing. Not something you have to worry about. I would stick with just that. Now, let's just say I typed in something simple like keith.com. Now, this is saying that this domain name is taken. So what's nice about GoDaddy, not all these other sites do this, but there are other options, other extensions here. Remember, it's not just .com or .net anymore. There's all sorts of new extensions like .one, .life, .services, .online, things like that. Now be a little bit careful here because as you can see, I can buy keith.one for $12.99. But some of these other ones are considered premium domain names. They are a little bit more expensive there. It's a pretty expensive domain name. Now there are other ones too that other people own and they're auctioning off onto here. So they can see this one's going for $24.88. Very expensive keithg.com. Not quite the one I was looking for there, but I could purchase this from somebody else. Some of these can be auctioned, some of these can be just sold right through GoDaddy, so kind of be careful what you're paying for before you just hit add to cart and check out. But definitely go through here. You may find some other versions, other extensions that are out now and that may apply to you a little bit better if your domain name is taken. If not, go ahead and just add it to the cart. Now, other options are Namecheap.com. I like this one. I do buy domain names through these guys as well. Sometimes the domain names are a little bit cheaper here. It doesn't really matter where you buy it. Just maybe look around. You can see build your website for $288 a month. So they're offering some other things as well. InMotion hosting, this is one we'll take a look at here in a minute for hosting, but you can get your domain name through here as well. Again, it's good to have both in the same place, but not necessary. All right, so in the next video, let's go ahead and take a look at hosting, and we'll see what we're looking for in a host. All right, so we left off in the last video talking about domain names and where to purchase them from. Go ahead and just purchase, whatever you're looking for. Remember, you can always change it around later. You can always have a different domain name point back to the same hosting. We'll kind of get into some of that stuff later on, but purchase your your domain name. Now, depending on who you purchase that through, there may be some things that they offer as an add-on, like maybe emails or again, kind of securing your information so it's not available to the public as far as who registered for that domain name. They may show your information of like your name, your address, maybe your phone number. I don't remember. There is some different information. You may want to lock that down. I think that's like another 10, 15 bucks a month or a year, excuse me. Just depends on who you're going with, but something you may want to look at. But really, for the most part, I don't worry about the upsells. I just go right to the domain name and just purchase that, and I'm all set. Now, when it comes to hosting, that's a little bit different of a ballgame. Now, that may run a different price depending on who you go to. There are a lot of great hosts. I'm going to show you a couple, and I'm going to show you what to watch out for. So this is where things kind of start to get a little bit where you want to really pay attention to and put a little bit of thought into. Maybe not go for the cheapest one, because the cheaper, sometimes the more kind of issues you're going to have. So for the most part, there are two different types of hosting. There's shared hosting, which is where you are on a server with possibly hundreds of other websites. You are sharing that server with them. That means that if one of the websites gets hacked, there is a slim chance that your website could get hacked as well, even though they're not on the same domain name. They are on the same server, so there is potential. More of a concern, personally, is the speed of the server. Remember, a server is just a computer, any kind of computer where it has a processor, it has RAM, and it has hard drive space. So they're going to fill up that hard drive, and all those websites are still just like a program on your desktop. They are competing for the RAM and the processor speed on your website, on your computer. So your website may slow down if another website on that server is using a lot of RAM or a lot of processor speed. Just depends what's going on. So maybe there's a ton of videos that another website uploaded on the server, and a ton of people are all of a sudden watching those videos on that other website. Again, even though it has nothing to do with your website, yours may slow down a little bit because all those videos are taking up the RAM and the processor speed of the server. So kind of think about that. I'm going to show you what those are here in a second. One other thing that there are a couple options for is the type of server that you're going on. Now, there are typically, for the most part, two options: Windows servers and Linux servers. Personally, 99 times out of 100, I use a Linux server. WordPress runs just fine on a Windows server as well, but I just find the software that runs on a Linux server is a little bit more robust. I like it a little bit better. You may get different opinions from different people who are more into Windows servers. I think they may be a little bit more secure. Some other options there, just maybe look into it, but for the most part, I stick with a Linux server, and I'm going to show you that as we get into this. Now, a lot of hosts, they offer different types of hosting. So you're going to see that there is hosting up here, which we can take a look at. And you can see they offer web shared hosting, then virtual private server. So this is where you get a portion of a server, and you get that certain amount of RAM and processor speed allocated to any website that you put on that server. And then there's a dedicated server where you get the entire server to yourself, all the RAM, all the processor speed. You get a ton of room, and your site is going to be lightning fast for the most part, but you're definitely going to pay the price for that. So you've got web hosting, and this is all of your basic shared hosting accounts. So $249 a month, all the way up to $20 a month. These are for all the different, just the amount of space is basically the difference that you're getting, the amount of space on that server that you're getting. a managed WordPress site. So this is a little bit different. A lot of hosts are starting to come out with a server specifically for WordPress. They will offer some kind of a nice things. So for the most part, I have been going more with these managed WordPress websites. You can see they're just a little bit more per month, but definitely worth it because usually they run a little bit faster. And then the other two options we looked at up there were the VPS, the virtual private server. You're getting that portion of a server all dedicated to you, and you can run a bunch of websites on here. So for about 18 bucks a month compared to 4 bucks a month, you know, if you're ever going to host 4, 5, 6 websites, yeah, I would definitely get the VPS. It's such a great option. I have actually, I think, 3 VPS accounts. Definitely a great way to run a website. And if you really know what you're doing and you really need a ton of speed and a ton of room on a server, 70 bucks a month, you can get a fully dedicated server. Great options there. GoDaddy, again, if you're going to go up to the VPS or maybe the WordPress, I would say you're probably fine sticking with them. I'm not a huge fan of them as a host. I do like their domain names. We did see that Namecheap is offering hosting. You can see they have the same kind of thing where they've got shared hosting plans, very similar in price here. WordPress hosting, $1 a month. Wow, what a great deal. See, a lot of these you got to watch out for because then they renew after a year for a little bit higher per month, but you can see that that was still the same price that GoDaddy was offering. I think theirs were $3.99 as opposed to $3.88. Ooh, 11 cents. I can save. Another host I really like is InMotion. Again, same kind of options. They get the VPS, the dedicated, different types of business hosting, shared hosting, kind of the same thing right there. A little bit more per month, but they're also a very good company, really good tech support. I really like them. I have a VPS with them. They do have WordPress hosting. I have that with them as well. They have a couple different packages here. And again, you can see they're a little bit more expensive, but you're actually getting a lot more with it. This one comes with a free domain name. So maybe that's something you want to look at. You can get a free, kind of roll it all into there. You can get a ton of SSD storage. That's great. It stands for solid state drive, which is a very fast hard drive. It's more like RAM. It's definitely something you want to look for when you get into WordPress websites. Another site that I really like, and I forgot to pull it up here, is siteground.com. Again, a little bit more expensive, but they are a great hosting company. You can see that these start at $3.95 a month, but they kind of renew at $11.95 a month. They have a lot of great options in there. They have things that'll speed up your website. They have things that'll look for malware and viruses on a regular basis. So this is something to maybe consider. I do host with them as well. I really like SiteGround a lot. So really any of those options I would stick with. You start to get into some other random websites that offer free hosting or $1 a month hosting, you're going to get what you pay for. So just be careful. If you don't want to spend a lot, maybe stick with GoDaddy in the beginning. You can always move stuff around later on. But personally, I would say either SiteGround or InMotion would be where I would start. So in the next video, we're going to talk about actually, after you've purchased all this stuff, what to do next. Alright, so in the last couple of videos, we have looked at where to get a domain name from, where to get hosting from, and the different options that you have for it. That is going to be the first thing that you want to do to really decide on where your blog is going to be taken to. I say that because, again, we talked about the shared hosting being a little bit slower, the WordPress hosting being a little bit faster, and the different options that come with each. Personally, you want to keep it simple. Maybe just buy both through GoDaddy, keep it really simple, or buy both through InMotion, really simple. I think even SiteGround, do they have domain names? I'm pretty sure you can purchase a domain name through them as well, even though they're not specifically saying it right up here. But go ahead and get one of those. What that'll do is get the domain name and the hosting connected together. If you buy them separately, I'm going to show you how to do that, is connect them as well. Not a big deal to do, but let's take a look. So you've purchased one of these. They're going to send you information on how to get into something called a cPanel or a control panel. This is going to be where you're going to go to set up your WordPress website. So I have one already pulled up here. And this is typically what a cPanel looks like. Now, they may have a couple different, there are different skins for this, so it may look a little bit differently, but all this information is, for the most part, pretty much the same. Now, this is a test domain name that I set up with hosting on one of my VPSs. And so I'm just going to use this for demonstration purposes here. So what this is in control panel is this gives you kind of back-end access to everything about the server that you're on. Now, not your website necessarily, but the server that you're on. So maybe I want to upload a file to my website. When you first log in, you're going to see maybe a bunch of things like this. Maybe you won't see all these files with a dot in front of them. Every host will be a little bit different, but for the most part, you're going to want to just look at the public HTML file. And you can see that's completely empty right now. The CGI bin, that's all part of the hosting, so that's really nothing you need to worry about. It's nothing that shows up. But here I could start to upload files to my website. Maybe I just wanted to have a place where people could download PDFs for a little while, or graphics, things like that. This is just kind of the starting point if you ever needed to. These are the kinds of things that Control Panel gives you access to. Some of the other things it gives access to is a database. Now, not to scare you off, but you will be installing a database. It's very, very simple to do. I'll show you one where you can kind of avoid that when installing WordPress, but WordPress works off of a database. So if you ever needed to go in and edit the database, that is here. With some hosting accounts, you can actually add on other domain names to your hosting. So you could host multiple sites on one hosting account here. You could also add a subdomain. So maybe you wanted to do a different language of your blog. So you can maybe just have your main blog, again, keith.com as an English speaking blog, but maybe you wanted to translate it to Portuguese and German or whatever else you wanted to do, Spanish. You could create a subdomain that could be like espanol.keith.com, something like that. So you can set up those subdomain names here. It's also a place where you can go and set up emails for your account. You can see your stats of the website, like how many people are visiting your website. These are usually very detailed lists. Errors, maybe someone is hitting an error page on your website and you're going to take a look at that, maybe get that fixed. Different things like that. Security, you may want to set up some kind of security. Again, for the most part, I wouldn't worry too much about that kind of stuff. The host handled a lot of that. I'm going to show you some other ways to actually secure your website later on. Most of this stuff is stuff you'll never ever worry about, but what you're looking for is a very quick and easy way to install your WordPress website, and I'm going to show you that in the next video. All right, so we're back. We're going to install WordPress onto our hosting account here. Now, every host is going to be a little bit different here. Again, I said most of them are going to give you a control panel that's going to look something like this. Again, maybe the icons may look a little bit different. It'll just depend on the skin that is on their control panel. But for the most part, it should be kind of the same. So just look for the names. There's probably going to be an area for applications. Now, this is going to be where the host has kind of pre-installed versions of software that it will then install onto your hosting account for you. Some offer a lot of options. Some will just offer one, like this one is just offering a WordPress website. Some will offer tons of different CMSs and accounting platforms and CRMs and things like that. They may be hidden under something called Softalicious. Just maybe look for that account, but you'll probably see something given the title like applications or installations or something like that. It'll look just like that. But for this case, this is perfect because we want to install a WordPress website, and we're going to do it the very easy way first. And the next video, I'll show you how to do it manually in case your host does not provide something like this. So I'm going to go ahead and click on WordPress Manager, and you can say, you can see that it says installation, no compatible installation is on this account. So I'm going to go ahead and create one. And first, it's going to walk me right through. It's going to show me what version of WordPress it will install at the time of this video. This is the most current version. It really doesn't matter for the rest of what we're going to be doing here, what version you see, because it may just look a little bit different, but for the most part, everything is going to be the same. Not a lot changes from version to version of WordPress. They do make improvements, but again, nothing you're going to need to really worry about or find this video to be outdated on. So it's going to ask you, where do you want to install it? So maybe I wanted to install this in one of those subdomains that I talked about, or maybe I want to just put this into a folder. So maybe I want to create a whole separate blogging area on my website. For the most part, you're probably not going to want to do that. You're probably just going to install this as being the main part of the website. So we'll just keep the regular domain name as it is. And I'll just click install. And we're going to watch this go through, and this is probably going to ask me a couple questions. When it does, we're going to want to write this information down. With some of the installs, it's going to do the work for me and give me a username and password, and maybe even the database information that I'm going to want to write down. All right, so you can see right there, it finished it up. I can access the website. It's already installed for me. It went from nothing. We saw that file. We opened up the folder, and we saw there was nothing on my host. We'll take a look at what it did here in a second. But it did give me a username and password, so I'm going to go ahead and copy that. I'm on a Mac, so what I like to do is open up just like text edit, and for right now, I'm just going to paste that information in there so I have it. Personally, I also use Evernote. I love to host all my passwords and things in there. But for right now, I'm just going to use this little text program. All right, so let's go ahead and go back. So we know that's installed. Come back home. So let's go back into the file manager here, and we can take a look. Remember, we went into the public HTML file, and I can see there's a whole bunch of files in there now, not just the CGI bin. This is everything that WordPress uses to basically work. Again, none of this stuff is something you'll probably ever have to worry about, but just know that it's there, and you can see that it did all the work for me. Now, in the next video, I'm going to go ahead and install this manually. So if you do not want to watch that, feel free to skip over to the next video. If you do want to see how it's done manually, it's great to learn how to do. It's not very complicated, very kind of simple to do for the most part, just a couple extra steps. Alright, so in this video I'm going to install WordPress manually. Maybe my control panel did not have an option to install any kind of WordPress, or maybe I did something, I don't know. There's a lot of different reasons you may want to do this manually. I typically do it manually just because I like to do it for whatever sick, twisted reason. So to do that, it's very simple to do. You can do this on any hosting environment. We're going to go to WordPress.org. Now remember, it's not .com, it's .org. There's a little difference there. The .com is the blogging platform. The .org is the kind of the resource center if you want to learn more about WordPress. They have a lot of good information here. All you have to do is go. It's always in the same spot. Up here it says Get WordPress. So we'll go ahead and click on that. And we'll download the most current version right here. So I'll say download, and I'll save it to my desktop. And again, depending on when you install this, you will probably see version 5.0 or 5 point something. I know they are getting ready to come out with that here pretty soon. I think they're already testing it out for the most part, but you're probably not going to notice much of a difference. There will be some differences, but nothing that's really going to affect what you do. All right, so within a couple seconds there, you can see that this has downloaded to my desktop. And I'm going to come back to my control panel up here. So there's going to be two things that we want to do. For one, we need to upload these files, and we need to decompress them. The other thing is we need to create a database. Ooh, big scary database. Don't worry about it. I'm going to walk you through that. It's very, very simple to do. All we need to do is create an empty one, and there is a wizard that will help us kind of walk us through the steps of what we need to do. And we'll get that all set up and running. Then we'll connect the two, and we'll have an up and running website here in less than 5 minutes. All right. So we're going to go to File Manager here at the top. And again, we want to make sure that we are in the root directory of the kind of the hosting account of where your domain name is pointing to. This is kind of outside of the root. All this stuff right here, this makes up things that do different things for your website. Does different checks, emails, things like that. Just tracks login information. We want to make sure that we're in this public public HTML. Sometimes you'll see a folder that just says www. They really basically take you to the same spot. You can see actually there's one right here, but there's a little link right there, meaning that it's an alias where it just takes you into here. Public FTP, that's where people could upload files to if they were, maybe like a print shop or something where they were transferring files. Good place, just kind of keeps it separate from your hosting, but we don't really worry about that. We're only worried about this public HTML. I'll double click that. You can see this is completely empty right now. And what I need to do is go to the upload button. There's a whole bunch of options here across the top. Most are grayed out because I have nothing selected. I'm just going to go to upload. Now, depending on your host again, you may have this kind of HTML5 version where you can just drag and drop a file onto here. You may have to go search for the file. Again, it just depends on the host that you're on. So I'm going to take this file, I'm going to drag it right over to here. And you'll see the progress bar. It should only take a couple seconds to do. It's really pretty quick. Now, as long as the bar is blue, that means it's not complete. You'll see that the bar is actually blue and it said 100% there. Sometimes it actually sticks around for a couple seconds. So you may want to make sure that just wait till it turns green and then you'll know you're all done. Now I can close this window out and I'll come back to my hosting. All right, so here's my public HTML file folder and there's nothing in it. All right, so what you need to do is you need to refresh it. This is not constantly updating itself. So we just need to upload it, or excuse me, reload it right here. So I click reload. And we'll see that my files are right up there, but they're still zipped. So where's all those files that I need? So across the top up here, you'll see some different options as well. And we're going to say extract. We're going to extract all the files that are in this compressed folder that make up our WordPress site. So say extract. And it'll say, where do you want to extract them to? Public HTML is where we want to go, so just leave that as it is. And we'll say extract files. All right, so say close that out. All right, so the files are still not where I wanted them to be. Now WordPress does this the way that it's zipped. It just kind of creates this folder right here. So I have to take one extra step. I have to go into this WordPress folder. I'll double click that. Now there's all my files, but they're in a folder. So I need to pull that back into my main directory. So I'll say select all, and then I'll click on move. I want to move these back a folder. So remember, we were in that public HTML. That's where we want to be. These are in this folder called WordPress. All I have to do is just simply delete that word and hit OK. You'll see all the files all of a sudden disappear. And if I come back to public HTML, all my files are now in here. Now, one important thing to do is you don't want any folders with nothing in it. So come back up to this empty WordPress file and we'll say delete. In fact, I'm going to delete this installable version of WordPress as well. Just no need to have that. I'll say skip the trash and done. All right, so now I have a perfectly installed version of WordPress of the files. The second half of this is installing the database. Let's come on back to the, don't need that anymore, come back to the control panel and we'll say, okay, now we need to create a database. So we come up to this MySQL database wizard. There's usually a couple different SQL or PHP all these things under databases. In this case, we want the wizard. That's going to help walk us through creating a database. Now we have to give it a name. Now this you definitely want to write down because you're going to need this for the next step. So it's going to say create a database name. I just give it like 3 or 4 random letters. And I'll copy both the first part of it and the second part that I just typed in right here. All right, so you can see I just copied it so it looks just like that right into here. You will need this here in a second, so make sure you have it ready. So next step. Now I like most people say not to have the same username and database name. I keep them the same just for simplicity. So I put that in there, and I usually like to generate a password. So I'll copy that information, and I'm going to put it right below here. So these are the 2 things that I'm going to need to finish installing my WordPress website, is those 2. So I'll say close. Now I have a kind of a password saver, so sometimes this stuff defaults back. So I'm going to go ahead and just paste that back in. I'm going to say password and password again. It's asking for it again just to confirm it, and I'll say create user. So that just created the database for me. Now one last question is, what privileges do I give this database? In this case, I'm going to say all privileges. That's going to keep it nice and simple. And I'll say next step, all set. So I'll return home. All right, so the very last step we need to do is go to our domain name. And in the next step, I'm going to show you how to connect your domain name and then test this out. All right, so for this instance, I purchased my domain name through GoDaddy.com, and I have my hosting done through InMotion Hosting. So what I need to do is I need to connect that domain name to the hosting account. It's like an address. We're pointing that address to the actual house itself, showing me where those 2 are connected. Now I could take a domain name and I could point it to a whole new host every couple of weeks or whatever I wanted to do. You can always move that around. It just depends on where you're pointing it to and what you use. Try that again. What you use to connect that is something called a name server. That's the name of the server, basically, we're pointing it over to. So when I registered for InMotion, it told me what the name servers were. So it's just 2 different names that I need to put in. And I have my domain name through GoDaddy. So I'm going to go into the domain names area. I'm going to find the domain I'm looking for, which is Online Marketing Concepts. I'm going to click on that. And it's going to give me some very basic information. So here's like my contact information that's going to be throwing out to the public if I don't keep that private. Again, I didn't pay to keep that private, so I'm not too worried about that right now. And then I'm going to come over to Manage DNS. That's where I want to manage the information about my server. So I click on that, and you'll see right here at the top, Name Servers. Now it's going to give you, now if you purchase it through GoDaddy, it's going to give you 2 name servers by default. I think they're like, whatever, they're random name servers that are specific to GoDaddy hosting. What you'll want to do is click on Change, and probably have to change it over from default, which GoDaddy does, to custom. And then for InMotion, these are the 2 name servers. Usually they'll start out with like an NS or NS1, something like that, and then the name of the company. And they'll give you 2 of them, so I'll add those 2 in there and I'll hit save. I've already got those 2 in there right now, so I'm not too worried about that. I can just go ahead and hit cancel. You'll hit save. Every domain name host is going to be a little bit different, but for the most part, this is exactly what you're looking for. Is just find where they have the name server information, change that out, and put that in there. Now, this does take a little while to propagate, to let all the servers know that this has changed. It's not going to be instantaneous. It could take anywhere from 5 minutes to, I think they say like up to 72 hours. I've never really seen it take quite that long. At most, probably an hour or so. It just depends on everything going on with the servers at the time. But for the most part, you change that out, and within a few minutes, you'll probably see your domain name up and working. That's all you need to do for that. Those are your name servers. So I'm going to come on and get out of GoDaddy, and I'm going to go to my actual domain name itself. So for this one, I had registered Online Marketing Concepts, which is a complete blank domain name. And if I type it in right now and hit return, as long as my name servers are working, you're going to see something like this where it asks you to finalize the install of WordPress. Now, if you watched the last video, you'll know that the server did all this information for me. I didn't have to do any of this. If I do it manually, this is what you have to go through. So by default, first you have to pick your language that you're going to be speaking. I'm going to stick with English because I don't know any of these other languages. And it's just saying, okay, be prepared here. You're going to need that database information that I just told you. You had to make sure you wrote down and kept safe. So I'm going to say, okay, I've got it. Well, let's go. All right, so we're just going to copy it on over. The database name I told you was the same as my username here. And in this case, I have the password just asking for here. Now the database host, for the most part, it's always going to be localhost. That's why they came in there by default. Your hosting provider, if you have a real cheap old GoDaddy hosting, I know they have some crazy long database name. Not something you'll have to really worry about for the most part if you're registering hosting accounts nowadays. But for the most part, just know that you can change it if you need to. And then the prefix for your database. Okay, so that's like all the tables are all named WP something. If you want to try to prevent being hacked, you may want to just go ahead and just change it up to something a little bit different. I'll usually just go ahead and put in like a letter and a number or something like that, just to kind of change it up, because hackers may look for WP dash whatever in a database. I'm going to change it to that. Nothing affects anything that you do by doing this. Just go ahead and keep that underscore in there, and it really doesn't affect anything. Just keep it to yourself, and we'll say submit. And we're going to run the installation, and within a couple seconds here, it's going to ask me what I want to call my website. So I'm going to call this Online Marketing Concepts. Whatever. I show you how to change this later on. And you come up with a username. I'll just call it Keith. You can maybe be a little bit more creative than that. Come up with something that's a little bit more secure. It doesn't matter. You can keep that one simple. But then it gives you a password that you can use. I would definitely suggest keeping something pretty complex like that, and then using a program maybe like LastPass to save it, so that way you're not having to try to type all that stuff every time. We'll get into that a little bit later on as well. And I'll go ahead and put in my email address, and I'll say install. Don't click on that. Yeah, for the most part, I wouldn't click on that right now. We can talk about that later. And we'll say install WordPress. So now it's doing the very final stages of installing WordPress, putting that information that I just typed in. If you had any database errors, it would have told you by now. But for the most part, that should go pretty smoothly. I'm not going to worry about that. And I'll say, okay, log in, just to make sure that this works. One thing to right down is the login page. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that and I'm going to paste it in here. There are basically two locations where you can log in at. So let's go ahead and take a look at these here right now. We can go to your domain name / wp-login.php or wp-admin. I prefer that because it's shorter and it actually redirects to this top domain name up here, or actually I should say URL. But either one of those will work. So maybe go ahead and write those down if you're new to WordPress. And I'm going to put in my new username, which was Keith, and my password. And log in, and voila, I am inside of WordPress. Next video, we're going to talk about all the different things in WordPress and start to get familiar with it. Alright, so we've installed our version of WordPress. We have everything up and running. This is the first page that you will see once you log in, and this is called your dashboard. So what this is basically an overview of your website as it stands right now with some basic information. I have one post, one page, one comment. These are all things that WordPress puts in by default just as kind of like placeholders for you. But as your website grows, you can get a glance, at a glance, see all the different things that make up your website. You could also do a quick draft of a post. You can look at different activities, just different news from WordPress, things like that over here. As you start to add other plugins, and you'll see when we do this, that there will be other areas that pop into here that are just kind of nice to see at a glance, but are just touch on little things that went through websites. So I don't spend a whole lot of time here, but being as it's the first page that you see when you log in, it is kind of important to at least understand what you're looking at. Now, the majority of what you're going to be doing is going to be involved in all the stuff over here on the left-hand side. These are your toolbars. This is your menu, basically, for your administrative area within the website. And this is going to let you do things like create new blog post, add media, which would be like images and photos and video and audio. Pages. These are the pages that make up your website. Now, you don't want to confuse these with blog posts because posts are like little articles that you write. Pages are going to be like your About Us or Contact Us, things that are more static and that don't change. The blog posts are things that continue to be added to and are more kind of newsworthy. Again, different than pages. Comments, those are nice to have. Once you start blogging, you'll see that there are probably going to be a lot of spam comments that you're going to want to watch out for. And we're going to talk through some things that will hopefully kind of minimize the amount of comments that you get that are spam. But those are where you would see new comments being placed. And you can go in and edit them and do some different things. Appearance is going to be where we're going to add different themes to our website. We're going to modify the menu. We're going to modify widgets and move things around there. I'll show you what all that stuff is. Plugins, that kind of adds the functionality to your website, which will let you do things like back up your website, add security, add social media icons, all different things like that that you can do. Those are going to be found in the plugins. Now, WordPress has a huge database of free plugins, for the most part, that you can choose from all from within your website, which is going to be very cool. We're going to take a look at that here in a little bit. The users, that's going to be either modifying your profile or adding other users to the website. What we can do is we can have other writers and contributors and editors and different people with different roles come to the website, log in, be able to do their thing without interfering with me. So you could have multiple people all working on the website at the same time. That's the true power of a CMS and working in something like WordPress. Now, if I were in a page and someone else wanted to edit it, they would see that the page was temporarily locked until I was able to get out of the page and they could then get into it. So it has a lot of checks and functions like that that'll help prevent bad things from happening. For the most part, you really won't be using tools. There is a plugin we will install later on that will be found under tools, under the settings here that we're going to use. It's going to be helpful, but for the most part, I really don't use those. And then settings, those are what make up your website and kind of add the little minor functionality that you're going to want to set before really going too far with blogging. So in the next couple of videos, we're going to be going through all those different things, and then we're going to get into even more advanced stuff. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with the settings and take a look at what's involved in that. If I click on settings or just mouse over it, you're going to see that I have a couple different options here under the flyout that happens. And if I just click on settings, I'll go to general by default, but I can always access all of these. So I'll just click on settings. And you can see again, I'm under general by default. So when we first registered the site, you saw that I had typed in a site title, which is what this is up here. And then it gives me the option to add a subtitle or a tagline. Depends on how you want to look at it. Now, depending on the theme that you're using, it may or may not show this tagline, but you can always just type it in there. The next options you have are the WordPress address and the site address. Do not touch these. Unless you know what you're doing and you know there's a reason to edit this, do not touch this. If you wanted to add an SSL, to add some kind of encryption to your website, this is where you would go to maybe add the S within up here. But you mess with anything up here and it'll shut your website down, and you'll need to have database access to be able to fix it. So definitely stay away from that. This is the main administrator's email address. Don't really worry too much about that. The membership, anyone can register. You really don't want anybody just registering for your website unless you are maybe selling items and you want those store items to be something where somebody can register as a user so that they can retain their information. So then they come back, they can have all that shipping information already stored in the site. We'll take a look at users and where they get stored later on, but for the most part, you really don't want to allow just anybody to register for the website. So I just keep that turned off. WordPress keeps that off by default. If you do have them register, you can set what their role is by default. And we'll talk about roles as we get into users as well. But you can say as a subscriber, they're basically just allowed access to the website, not like all this back-end stuff that you're seeing. That's all administrator. But their information is then stored under users so they can be retained and used later on. So, but let's say you wanted to have a team of people. Maybe you wanted to have somebody who's just an author, maybe just someone who's just an editor or a contributor, whatever. You can give them these different roles, and it's going to give them different access to the website. Again, they may see different parts of the left-hand menu up here. Unless you're an administrator, you're not going to see plugins and appearance and different things where they can edit the site. They're pretty much going to be limited to like posts and pages and media, things like that they can go in and edit. One important thing to change is your time zone. I'd like to try to find what that is because that does affect the time stamping on your blog post. Or maybe let's say you're going to have a blog post that's set to go live at a certain date and time. You want to make sure that time zone is correct if you want it to post at the right time. Now, whether or not you know your UTC number doesn't really matter. I just like to type in my city, or at least the city that's nearest to me within my state. So I'll say Detroit. And that says my time zone automatically. Now, again, I talked about the blog format where they have the timestamp on it. I can show how that displays. I can choose if I wanted to do like, you know, the month, the day, the year, or the day, the month, the year, or have it be spelled out, or just come up with some kind of custom layout. Same thing with the time. Do I want it to be lowercase PM, uppercase PM, or do I want it to be like military time? Also, the day of the week that it starts on, I can set right here. That, again, is just kind of for blog posting, not something I really mess with too much. But for the most part, I keep all this stuff default. I just maybe change the time zone that I'm in and maybe the tagline up here. So I'll hit save. And let's go take a look at writing over here. So I've got a bunch of different categories. I went in and just edited just to kind of fill this up. By default, you're going to see uncategorized as being your main default category. These are the categories that get put into your post as you create them. So let's say I had a news website and I had a sports section, a business section, a lifestyle section. I could then decide what category those blog posts went into. And by default, maybe if I just added a new article and didn't select a category, WordPress would choose one for me by default, and that's what I would set right here. Not much you really have to do. I really don't edit this too much. Posting via email, you can actually just email a article and it would go into the website. I've never really used that. I don't know anybody who does. If it's something you wanted to, this training video is not going to show you how to do that. It's a little bit more time intensive and it's very specific to your server's information, so I really don't want to get into that one right now. But let's take a look at reading. So here's where we can say, okay, what type of website do I have? These are all things that you want to think about before we go too far with all this stuff. That's why I'm starting with settings here. Do I want my website to be primarily a blog? So when people come to the home page, they see all the different blog articles I've written? Or do I want this to be more of a business page where I've got my home page, which has information, the about page, the contact page, and then blogging is kind of like a very secondary thing on the website. So if that was the case, I would say my home page is going to be a static page, and this will be the home page, and this will be where my blog posts are. For this case, I'm going to say my home page is going to be my latest blog post, so I can keep that the way it is right now. Now, this just depends on how you want to lay out your website. You can always come back and change this stuff later, but again, just stuff you want to think about before going too far. We can also say how many blog posts per page I see. And if I have maybe 20 blog posts, you'll see a little read more or like a number button at the bottom of the page after I see 10 posts to say to see more posts, you can see that. So I can kind of adjust that right here. Now I did allude to when we first registered the site or set it all up, the very last option when we set our title and our username and password, the very last option looked exactly like this, right? A little checkbox and it said discourage search engines from indexing this site. That basically tells the search engines when they come to your website, Google, Yahoo, Bing, to, you know what? I don't want you to index me right now. I don't want you to look at what I'm doing. Just go away. I'll tell you to come back some other time. That's what that checkbox is doing. It says, don't even come here. Don't look at my website. This is important if you have, maybe you're rebuilding this website for somebody else and it's an existing site. You may want to have that just turn off right now, or you just want to hide information from Google. The problem with checking that is that I usually forget to uncheck it. So if a website goes live and I realize after a month or two that, man, I'm getting no traffic, nobody's coming here, Google's not indexing me, whatever the case is. This is why, because maybe I had this checked. So unless you really need to, I wouldn't check it. But if you do want to hide the information, if this is duplicate information by, duplicating this blog and working on it on the side, you may want to check that. If you did check that initially, this is where you'd come back to uncheck it. Discussion. This is very important because this is how people comment on your website. For the most part, you can keep most of these options the way they are. You can notify me when there's a new blog link, or notify me anytime a post or a comment is made to a post, or their post is held for moderation. Those are all good to know because you want to know when somebody leaves a comment. The problem is there's a lot of spam comments out there, so you want to kind of turn some of this off. Now, you don't have to necessarily just like not have commenting, but I would definitely at least say check on this. Comment must be manually approved before it goes live. I don't want just anybody being able to post something and for it to go live to the world to see, because it could be something negative or derogatory or just spam or hateful. It could be even code injections that hackers could use. So I always want to say that I want to be able to take a look at that comment before it goes live. And we're going to see all that stuff here in a little bit. Now, we could also say, like, what kind of words would put a blog post into moderation. So I could type in a bunch of bad words in here or whatever I want to say, anytime you see this, just go ahead and hold on to that blog post or that comment. I can also blacklist people by their IP address or their email address. So if they're coming back and they're always doing bad stuff, I can just go ahead and blacklist them right here. We can also show avatars or gravatars or different types of ID characters when people do post, kind of what they show up as. So those are kind of fun, but I really don't tweak those out too much. Media. When you upload media, how does it show? These are just the default sizes for like small, medium, and large images. I really don't mess with that too much. I'll show you where that does become important later on, but just know that it's here, that you can always tweak it out for. Permalinks, that's the last big one here. By default, WordPress sets it to day and name. So let's say when I go to the website and I go see onlinemarketingconcepts.com, and then I go to a web page, it's going to show the actual date, time, and year, month, and day, and then the name of the post. That's all just excessive to me. I really don't need people to know or have in this URL up here what they're seeing. A lot of times you will see blogs with this, what they call like an ugly URL, where it's just the database information, where it's like, some database info and like the page ID. That's not real good. For good SEO, 9 times out of 10, I'll choose post name only. So like right here. So I'll see the website URL or domain name, and then the full URL is the name of that page or that post. That's so nice and clean that the search engines are immediately able to tell what that article or that page is about and index me properly. But feel free to use any of these. There's really no wrong answer, but this is probably best for SEO. Privacy is kind of a new one in WordPress, where they will let you link to a privacy policy page. This is good to have. Really nothing you have to do here. I haven't never really tweaked this out. If you wanted to create your own privacy policy page, you could do that here. But that's the majority of all your settings. The next video, we're going to take a look at posts and start to have some fun here with creating new articles, and we're going to go from there. All right, so let's jump right into posts. Posts are the articles on your site. This is all about what blogging is about, is this section right here. So over here on the left-hand side, you're going to see posts. If you want to create a new post, you come over here. If you click on post, you will see a little flyout like you do with some of these other ones. Or if you just click on post, you're going to go to all posts and you're going to see them all drop down over here. So by default, WordPress puts in a post called Hello World where there's some basic information in it, basically a placeholder, something for you to take a look at. Now spammers are looking for this page title, this post title right here. So I typically trash it pretty much right away, but we're going to use this as an example to see some of the different options for posting. All right, so let's jump right into it here. So Hello World is the title. I can either click on that or I can click on the edit to edit that post. Or if I just know I want to add a new one, I can come up here to the add new and just create a new blog post that's completely blank. But if I mouse over this, you're going to get a couple different options. I can either edit the full post, which lets me do everything. I can do quick edit, where we can take a look at, it's going to show me just some of the basic things that I can edit. I can edit the title, when it gets posted, I can give it a password, I can give it a category, some different things like that that I can do. Everything basically except for editing the article itself. So that's the quick edit. Now here in a minute, I will trash this. I will delete it. I'm going to put that in there. So I'm going to click on the trash here in a bit. Or if I just want to go view the post itself, like where the world would see it as opposed to me in the back end would see it, I can click on view and actually go see the post live. For right now, let's go ahead and hit edit so we can just see kind of what's going on before we get rid of this one. And you can see it gave it a title by default. So this is what the world is going to see as the title of the article. So we're going to type that in up there. And here is our editor window. This is what you're going to use to edit your article. This is very similar to like Microsoft Word, where you can go in and maybe select a little bit of text here and you can make it bold or italicize. Maybe you wanted to have some of this text here be a bulleted list or a numbered list, something like that. Again, very similar to Word. You should be very familiar with something like this. I can also align all my copy left, right, centered. I can select a word and I can add a link to it. I can go ahead and link that off to somewhere else if I wanted to. You type in the URL and just hit apply. If you're not seeing all this information by default, all this information here by default, you get one row, usually kind of by default by WordPress. If you click on this little icon right here, it gives you a second row, gives you some extra information here. So maybe I can highlight that text and I can change the color of it to be a weird green. Maybe I want to add a weird symbol, like maybe one of the letters in the Spanish alphabet or the copyright symbol. I can click on this guy right here and I can choose any of these characters. So there's a copyright. I can do that. I can indent it. I can undo some of the work that I've done so far. So it really gives you all the basic information to be able to edit your copy right in here. But this is the body of the article. This is where everything is going to go. You could also add images. You could click on this and you could start to drop in photos or video or audio or PDFs or any kind of thing that you can use for people to be able to download or see is going to go right in there. Now some other information that you're going to see right up here under the publish area, this is how the article gets published. We can either say update and go live with it, or you can say, maybe I want to say this is already published. I can click on edit. I can set this back to draft mode, so only I can see it in the back end. People on the front end of the website aren't going to see this. For right now, I'm going to keep that published. I can also change the visibility of it to be public, which is everybody, or I can say it's password protected. So if I click on that, I can actually just add in a password, 1234, and now people have to enter that before they can read the article. So that's kind of cool. Maybe you would give maybe your dedicated members of your website, or valued readers, you can give them a password protected area to get some extra information or a download or something like that. That can be kind of nice for that, but for this case, I'm just going to set that to public. I can also set this to publish in the future or in the past. I can say that I want this is today's date. I can say that, this article should actually have been live 2 days ago. Or I can say, just wait for 2 days and publish it then. So I can schedule it. But for right now, I'm good with keeping this as today's date and hit OK. And actually the date is in the future because I had my time zone incorrect in the beginning when I first did this. So we'll say OK. Now that changes it. Now it's update. So I can go live with it right now. I can also go in and change the category. So if I've got several different categories that this blog is going to go under, this post would then just fall into one or multiple categories. By default, WordPress creates this uncategorized category, which I hate, so I always get rid of that, and then I choose whichever category fits this article best. I can add some tags to it. Now, these are kind of like hashtags. It's a way for people to be able to find information on your website quickly. So if you had a bunch of posts on marketing or sales or whatever the case was that was applied to certain articles, separate from the category. Maybe this was very specifically about Google marketing or whatever, so you wouldn't have a category for that, but you may have a tag for that. So there could be a place on your website where people could see all those different tags and click on those to see all the articles that have that same tag in it. Now, the last thing is a featured image. This is the large image that usually appears at the top of a blog post. So I can click on that just like I could the media area. And I'm going to go ahead and just kind of set a default image that I grabbed here real quick. And I can see that just by dragging and dropping that uploaded right there. You know, it's probably too big. I still got to save that one down. All right, so I'm going to just add a featured image here. I got one on my desktop. I'm going to click and drag over to WordPress, and it's going to go ahead and upload that for me. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and upload an image. Click on the featured image. I'm going to drag it from my desktop to the image area, and I'll say set featured image, and you should see it appear right down there. So I'm going to hit update. Now what's cool is we can just click on, usually I hit Command or Control, click on the link right up here so I can go visit that article. I'm going to click on that, and you can see I've got my featured image up here. I've got my blog article down here. I've got the default comment that WordPress put into there, and I've got some widgets over here, and this is all stuff that we're going to go in and customize and kind of edit here in a little bit. Kind of ugly right now, but at the same time, we just installed WordPress, and we've got a completely functioning website, styles, images, everything is super easy to do. Not a lick of code we've used so far. So a lot of potential here, a lot of cool stuff going on. We're going to get ready to go into pages next and some other cool stuff, so stick with me. Alright, so in the last video we got done working on our first blog post over here, so we're probably going to go ahead and just delete that. So I'm going to go into all post here and click on trash and just get rid of that one for right now. Now let's say, oh, you know what, I really had some important information in there I wanted to keep. It's not really gone. So if you look up here at the top, you'll see that there's all and there's trash. So I could still always recover something from the trash unless I hit delete permanently. So just a little something to keep in the back of your mind there. One other thing, we'll just kind of go down the row here of other areas, is the categories for the posts. Now I went ahead and created a couple of categories because by default it just comes with uncategorized, but you can go in and add other categories, or you can do it from the post area, which we took a look at. So just know that you can always go in here. We can always edit these. Maybe there's one you created in a post, but maybe you spelled it wrong. You can always come back here and say edit, change the spelling of the word business or whatever it was that you had, and just say update, and that's where all that stuff is at. So there's also tags as well. We talked a little bit about that. You could have pre-made tags, maybe common ones that you're going to use over and over. Most people really don't create those ahead of time. Just know that there is an area very similar to categories where we could go in and either add some, or maybe if we spelled something wrong, we could go in and edit it in here. So just know that those two areas are there for you. Now we also within the post, we added a new image. I'm going to delete that one right there because that one didn't upload right, neither did that one. So we can delete that. So within the media area here, this is what stores everything that you've uploaded to the website. Again, this could be an image, this could be a PDF, this could be a video, an audio file, whatever, any kind of media file you can upload to here. What's nice is depending on the name that you name it, you can also search for it in here. So maybe you had your logo or something that you were looking for. You just type that word in there and it'll try to pull up whatever it can find that's very similar to that name. Now if I click on the image itself, there's some different things that we can do. With this, we can see, well, you know what, it shows right where it was uploaded to. It was uploaded to that Hello World post that we created. We can view the attachment page and we can edit the details on it, different things like that. We can actually edit the image itself. Now it's a little bit limited. It's not the most advanced image editing software. And the big thing I don't like about it is that it will kind of save over the original photo. So if you edit this, it's not going to also make a duplicate of it and show you the edited version. It's just going to edit this one photo. So we can always rotate it, do different things like that with it. We can change the dimensions of it, so we can kind of scale it down. We can crop it. And that's kind of it right there. It's not like Instagram where you can really, tweak out the colors and different things like that. It just gives you some basic image editing functions in here, which is nice. But again, I prefer to do that somewhere else where I have complete control over exactly how the image is being displayed. All right, so the next area we're going to take a look at is pages. Now it works a lot like post up here, where I can mouse over pages and I can create all pages or create a new one. Just by clicking on pages itself, I go to all pages. And from within here, there are 2 pages, just like the post, where WordPress has created them automatically for me. I can go and delete them if I want to, or I can just kind of start working from them. So I'll click on sample page. And again, if I mouse over it, this looks just like the post where it has the edit, the quick view, and the trash and the view. But I'm just going to click on the title for right now. And the area over here looks just like it did in the post. It works exactly the same way as the post, and it's very, very similar. On the the right-hand side over here, we can have it published on a certain date. We can have it password protected. We can set it to draft mode. Same stuff we could in the post. Now, there is some stuff over here we don't see that it was in posts. But for the most part, it's really kind of all the same. It's, the posts and pages are very, very similar. They're just set up a little bit differently in the front end of the website. So we've got our pages in here. Let's go ahead and create a couple new pages because we're going to want to get rid of sample pages. That's another place that spammers kind of tend to go after because it's a predefined page. Every WordPress site has it. So let's go ahead and get rid of that. Let's create one called Home. We'll create this as our home page here. And I'll hit Publish to publish it. And I'll add another new one. We'll call this just one about. And we'll say publish. And we'll create one more. And we'll call it contact. And we'll hit publish. Okay, so we've got 3 pages so far. In fact, let's go ahead and just add a little bit of copy. And let's do one other thing. We'll give it a header tag. This just kind of gives it a different predefined font size. So header 2 is a little bit smaller than header 1. Header 3 is smaller than the 2. And I'll hit publish there. All right, so let's say I want to go back and edit those other 2 pages that I just created. So I'll come back to all pages. And I'll go to home. And I'll say, this is the home page. And I give that one, let's say give that one a header 1 tag, just so we can see the difference. And I'll go back to all pages again. And I'll do the same thing for about, and I'll say this is the about page, and I give that one a header 3 tag. Now depending on the theme and the styles that are applied to it, those header tags are going to look a little bit different from theme to theme, but that's not a big deal. Just having that in there is important enough. And you know what, that's good for right now. So let's do this. Let's actually go take a look at the front end of our website, and you can do this a couple different ways. You can either click on the URL that it gives you right up here for that page. That's going to take you specifically to the page that we just created here. We can also, up here, you'll see the title, the name of your website. You can click on that. There's also a view page up here, which is the same as clicking on this link down here. So for this case, I'm going to go ahead and just click on this. And in fact, because I'm on a Mac, I'm going to click on Command and click it. If you're on a PC, I believe it's Control click, and it'll open up a new tab, so we're not losing our place right here. So I'll click on that, and you see I got a new tab. And this is the default theme that comes with the current version of WordPress. As I come down here, you can see that there's nothing on the home page right now. So we need to set this because in our settings, we had it set to the blog post being what is the home page. So let's go ahead and come back. And we'll go to our settings here. And we'll say reading. And instead of the home page displays our latest post, we'll say it displays a static page, which is going to be, and we can select which is the home page, home. And then we can say, let's just say sample page is our blog page. It doesn't really matter. It just, whatever the link is. And we'll hit save. I'm going to come back up to the other tab, which is, this is just the home page of Online Marketing Concepts. And I'm going to refresh it. And now you'll see that this is now displaying the home page. This is right there. This is the home page. And if I were to upload a featured image, I believe that's what goes up here with this theme. Again, every theme's a little bit different here. And then this is all the information that goes on the page itself. So that's creating pages and the basics of kind of editing the images and everything else. The next couple of videos, we're going to dive a little bit deeper into the themes, and we're going to take a look and see some different options with that we can do. Very simple, very cool stuff, so stay with me. Alright, so as we saw in the last video there, we created the home page and we made that our static page. But because this is a blog, let's go ahead and switch that back to our home page being the latest post. You can do whatever you want with your blog, whatever makes the most sense for you. Just for the demonstration purposes here, we're going to say that this is the latest post. And what I want to do, so I can actually see some things happening here, I'm going to go over to my posts. I'm going to create a couple of posts. And let's go ahead and just see what I've got created so far. All right, so I deleted the one, so there's nothing here right now. So let's go ahead and just create 3 posts. I'm gonna call this one post 1, doesn't really matter. And in a new tab, I'm gonna go to a website just so I can grab some dummy copy. I like to go to Ipsum, it's Lorem Ipsum, and we'll just copy a paragraph out of here. Again, just kind of so we can see what it's gonna look like. And we'll paste that into the body here. We can set a feature image if we want. I'll go ahead and grab this current one right here. And we can choose a category. Let's say this one falls into the business category. And I'll hit publish. Now let's create a new one. Call this one post 2. Now you want to give this an actual good blog name. This is just for demonstration purposes right now. Let's say this one goes under sports, and let's go ahead and just use that same image that we have right now. And I'll hit publish. And if I go back to the home page of the website and I hit refresh, we can see that this is just our latest blog post. So I posted them in the most recent blog post first, which was 2, which I just got done publishing. A couple seconds before that, I had post 1. You can see our featured image, and we can see some of our copy. Now again, each theme is going to lay this out a little bit differently, but you can see where this is starting to go. All right. Now that we've got a couple posts in there, let's go ahead and switch out a theme. And we can, because I've got those 2 posts in there and a couple of pages, we can start to see what the theme's going to look like. Now if I go to Appearance and under Themes here, there are 3 by default, at least with this version of WordPress. Every year WordPress seems to come out with a new theme that they build into their WordPress version. So you can see 2015, 2016, 2017. Even though it's the end of 2018, there still isn't a 2018 version yet. I think they're waiting until they come out with a new version of WordPress. But regardless, you've got 3 that you can start from that are very basic, but very good as far as starting points. If you're a developer and you want to kind of just re-emulate their theme and build off of it, they're great for that. But there's a ton of free ones that are already, well designed within the WordPress database here. So we're in Appearance, we're in Themes. We can say Add New. Now you can purchase your own theme. There's places that you can go to get them, like Elegant Themes and Theme Forest and different places like that. You could then purchase it, download it, and then upload that theme, or you can just pick one of these. Now these are free, and there's usually like a little link back to the original developer in here or something like that. A lot of them give you the option to then upgrade to a paid version if you wanted to. All different options. But these are the free ones that are in the database, and you can see there's just a ton of cool stuff in here. These are just the first couple. These are the most featured ones. Here are the most popular ones, so we can start to sort by different things. People seem to like some of these. These look like more sales, online shopping type of blogs. Some of these are actual blogs. Some are just different websites. Here's like a news blog right here. Another news blog. I'm going to keep mine kind of simple. Here's actually an old WordPress one, 2011. Wow. So, I don't know. Let's see. I saw one over here that I kind of liked a second ago. Oh, you know what? It was in the past one. Let's look at some of these other options up here too. There's also favorites. Well, I haven't saved any favorites yet. There are latest. That's kind of cool. The red and the green. That's fun. This one looks like kind of a Pinteresty style. That's kind of cool. But let's say I had something very specific in mind that I was looking for here. So I can click on Feature Filter. And I can say, I want the blog to be an actual blog, or maybe an entertainment blog. I can choose a couple options here. I want to be able to have sticky posts and background color, or excuse me, custom background. and I want to have the layout be in a 2 or 3 column format. So this is going to find all the blogs that have those criteria built into them, and I can apply that filter, and it looks like there's 6 options. No, looks like I had 6 features. So here's all the ones that will meet that criteria. So oh, this one's kind of cool. All right, so I'm going to say install, or I can just preview it. Now preview it, it's going to show you kind of an option of like what it could look like. Sometimes these are a little bit distorted, so it's not always the best option, but it gives you kind of a basic overview of what the blog could look like. So I'm going to say, you know what, I do like that. I'm going to install it, and then I'm going to activate it. So installing it just brings it into your WordPress website, into this area right here. Activating it makes it that featured blog that you're using. So now if I come back to the homepage of my website, here's the original. If I just hit refresh, I've got a whole new website going on here. This is very cool. It's actually a very good looking blog. I really like the way this lays out. Within each of these themes, there's so many differences that I can't cover everything, but we're going to take a look at what this blog offers and talk about some of the other things that other blogs offer here in the next video. Alright, so in the last video we went ahead and installed a new theme into our website here. I went and grabbed this one, but again, you could always go and add new, purchase something, upload it, and it'll be very similar to what we're doing here. The other option is to choose one of the free ones, do the same thing as we do here. This was the one that I chose. You can see because this is a free one, they've got this like powered by WordPress and Donovan down here. For the most part, those are usually kind of fixed into there until you like either purchase it or basically just a way to give back and say, if you're going to use this for free, at least give me a link back to the original developer. So it's kind of only fair. So let's go and take a look at what the options are for stylizing this blog a little bit more. All right, so I'm in the back end of my website. I'm under appearance and then themes. And again, this is the part that's going to be a little bit different. If you purchase a theme, a lot of times there may be like a new little block over here, a new link on the left-hand side with the name of that theme that's going to give like a ton of custom controls over it. That's what you get when you get a custom theme. They are very detailed. You can just detail it out to the very smallest level of fonts, font sizes, where things appear, things like that. But these are a little bit more basic, these free ones, but they're totally fine for what you do most of the time. But anyway, under appearance here, you can see that there is a customize option. So let's click on that. 9 times out of 10, this is where you're going to go to customize your theme. And again, each theme is going to be a little bit different on what it lets you do. So let's go ahead and just kind of jump into some of these basic options here. So let's say site identity. Looks like I can upload a logo if I wanted to instead of the text going on up here. I could then also change some of the stuff that was down in our settings that we already looked at. So that's not a big deal. I'll leave that the way it is. Header image, looks like I could add a photo. So let's just see what this one looks like. So I can select that. Sure. And what's nice is you got this whole live preview area here. This is not live on your website. This is just showing what's going to happen as you add something into here. So I can see, okay, this is what it's calling the header. I don't like that. Maybe I would want to find a different photo that fit better in there if I wanted to do something, but I don't, so I'm not too worried about the header. You can see as soon as I delete that, it goes away. I got a background here. I can change my background color. So maybe I really like this red here. I can make that red, or I can start to tweak it out. All right, cool, whatever. I'll choose that for right now. And again, if I go back to my website, this is the live website, and I hit refresh, nothing's going on. This is all just previewing right now with just the template stuff I have tweaked out in the back end here. I can also edit some stuff that's really in our settings area, so I'm not going to worry too much about like menus and widgets and things like that. We can talk about menus here in a minute, but homepage settings, again, same stuff that we saw in our settings area. It just gives you like a one-stop shop area where you can edit all these things in one place. Now, if I was a little bit of a developer or kind of had some basic things that I wanted to be able to change, I could go into this custom CSS area and I could start to fine tune these things, maybe change the font size or the font itself or little colors, things like that that maybe I'm not seeing in the theme itself to be able to customize. But don't worry about that. If you're not a developer, you don't know CSS, don't even worry about this part. Just know that it's there if you do. And I do see there's one last place. It says theme options. So let's take a look in there. So we've got layout settings. Right now this is set to a wide layout, which means it's going to stretch the full width of my browser, but it's probably going to offer a box layout. which is going to kind of center everything. So maybe I could throw like a background photo back there if I wanted to. It's also going to say the sidebar here, this little widget area on the right, where's the default sidebar position, left or right? Kind of like it over here on the right, so I'll keep it there. Centered layout also just kind of does the same thing as box, but pushes it to the top. But I'm going to keep wide layout for now. Blog settings, again, I can kind of customize how the blogs are going to look. Post settings, the actual post itself, what's being displayed here. Display date, I can take that off right there. You can see that disappeared as soon as I did that, or you can take off the author and leave the date. Totally tweak this one out however you want to. And some more features. Looks like you can get the Pro version where you can purchase that and you can get additional things. Some do come with plugins that it wants you to install. Some are mandatory, some are recommended. So maybe take a look at that. Each theme is going to be a little bit different, but know that there are some really cool things you can do within each of the themes. You're just going to have to take a look at each one because each one's going to work a little bit differently. All right, so one more thing under the appearance that I want to take a look at is the menu. It's very important because when you create pages on your website, they don't just naturally appear on the website itself on the front end. You have to set up a menu and a navigation area and tell it where that's going to go and like what goes in it. Some themes will pull in all pages by default. You really don't want that though. Maybe you've got like several versions of a page or different things like that. You don't want all that kind of stuff. You really want to have full control over it. So within appearance, under menus here, you'll see that by default there is just no menu created. So I'm going to create one. I usually like to call it main menu. Now you can call it whatever you want. That's really not displayed anywhere other than within the back end here. Where it does become important is if you start to have other menus. Maybe you have a footer menu, maybe you have a sidebar menu, maybe you have a blog menu, maybe you have a mobile version of a menu. Different things like that. You're going to want to know what the name is so you know where to put it properly. But for the most part, you can just call this one main menu and be fine with it. We're going to say create menu. Now we load that menu up with whatever pages we want in it. So here's all my pages right now. So you can see under pages at the top, all the pages that make up my website are right here. And I can choose all of them or just some of them. Maybe I don't want all of them. Maybe I don't want sample page because that really wasn't a page that I created. So I'll say add these to the menu. And the top one is going to be the menu item that's on the far left. So these are actually kind of in reverse order. So all I have to do is just click and drag, and I can move these guys around. Now if I wanted the home page to have a drop down, I could say about, just pull it over to the right a little bit, and you can see this changes to sub item. That makes it a drop down item from the main menu. But we're going to keep that the way that is right now. If I wanted to, I can also pull my post into the menu. Now, we really don't want to do that here. There's better ways to do that. You can create a custom link. So maybe you want to link out to another website or your Facebook page or something like that. You could put the full URL and the title of it in here. So I'm going to put just a placeholder right there, and I'll say, all right, so now I can create a whole new page, or a link basically. You can see that one's called custom link though, as opposed to a page right there. So I can have that go out. Now I can also pull in some of those categories that I was using in my blog post. So if I wanted to, again, maybe the majority of my website is all about blogging and all the navigation should be all the different categories so people can find what they're looking for. This would be a good place to put those categories into, and I can add them the same way I have everything else. But for right now, this is cool. I'm going to say save. Now this is half the battle. So we've created the menu, we've added the pages to it. Now we have to say where that's going to go. And that's where it's going to change from template to template. You can see up here now I've got manage locations. Some themes are going to have 1 or 2 areas to put a navigation area. Some are going to have 4 and 5. So this one has the main navigation, which is going to be right here. And I'll say which menu? I'll say the main menu. Social icons, I didn't create any for that right now, so I'm going to leave that one blank. But again, there could be a predefined footer navigation area or a mobile option, different things like that that I could have a different menu for that I want to put into there. So I'll say save changes. And I'll come back to my website and I'll hit refresh. And you can see on the left hand side now I've got home, about, contact, and Facebook. I could just as easily come back to my menu and say, you know what, I don't want Facebook in there. Let's go ahead and remove that. And I'm going to save that. And I'll come back and refresh this guy up here. And Facebook went away. So just like that, I was able to create all these pages, create the navigation area, and kind of tweak out a very nice looking theme. Next thing I want to do is talk about some of the plugins that we're going to want to use for our website, and then we're going to get deeper into blogging. Alright, so in the last video we went through the theme itself and how to customize and add a new one. We're going to do kind of the same thing now, but with plugins. So plugins work a very similar way, and they just add functionality to your website. And no matter what theme you're using, you can switch your theme back and forth. Your plugins will always stay on. So let's take a look at what some of those are now. I'm going to show you some of the ones that I would recommend, and I'll kind of show you how to set them up as well. So if I go over here on the left-hand side to plugins, it works the same way as most of the other flyout areas here, where you can see it says install plugins, we can add new, or we can edit them. So we're going to work on just taking a look at just what comes pre-installed into WordPress. So by default, at least as of I don't even know how long, many years now, they have always had these two plugins. And really, Hello Dolly I never used. It was kind of I don't think kind of a joke by I think the developers of WordPress originally, where it'll give a random Hello Dolly quote from the play throughout the back end of the website here. Really, I kind of go and just delete that for the most part. It's never had an update as far as I know. Really poses no threat, but it just kind of, I don't know, no reason to really have it. Now, Ask Commit, that's actually a great plugin. That's going to help prevent some of the spam coming to your blog. When you have comments available for people, there are a lot of spammers who are going to want to get in there and get their links in there and do different things. I would highly suggest go ahead and activating that and then registering for it. So the way that you do that is once you have a plugin installed, all you have to do is click on Activate. And each plugin is going to work a little bit differently here as far as how it works. But once you activate it, a lot of times you're going to see now the option to either deactivate or go into the settings. So for this one, we can go into the settings and take a look. And this one's asking you basically to register. What you're going to do is you can register for Akismet, and you basically give them your information about your website and your email, and it's going to ask you to donate a certain amount of money, and you can choose anywhere from $0 to I think like $1,000 or something crazy like that. Now, if you have more than one website, I would suggest doing the paid version so you can have a couple different Akismet keys. If you have a site that's actually making money, they recommend I think they basically say that you are supposed to pay for it if your site is making money. If you just have a generic blog, then you can get away with a free one. It's kind of up to you. It's kind of on the honor system. It is a great plugin, so I definitely support them. I do pay for a multi-seat license every year, so it definitely works, and I appreciate the services that they provide. So basically, you can go in and just go ahead and register. You'll get your API key. It'll walk you through all the steps here, but that's a good one to definitely start out with. Like I said, especially if you plan on having comments on your website. If you don't, you will start to see a lot of comments coming through, a ton of spam, and you're probably gonna get overwhelmed by it and be like, all right, I finally got to register for this. So for all my blogs, I always have this one. Again, it's not being paid to saying this. You can see it's actually part of WordPress. They have it pre-installed in there. Definitely a good one to have, but again, don't feel obligated to activate it or pay for it, but it's well worth the money. So let's go back over to plugins over here, and we can add new. And they're going to show you a couple of the big ones or the kind of more popular ones. But just like the themes, we can go and search the WordPress database for all different plugins, and we can add some really cool functionality to our website. And you can search from a couple different ways here. Again, it pulls up, these change from time to time. You can see Akismet's up here is one of the primary ones. You can install Jetpack. That's a really good one. We can take a look at that one. bbPress, which is like bulletin board. If you want like the old days of the internet when people were using bulletin boards a lot, we still use them here. It's still good for forums and things like that. But BuddyPress, where you can have basically like a multi-user community website. That's kind of a cool one. You can create your own little social media kind of website. Gutenberg, that was one of the things that we saw when we first logged into here. They're asking people to install that. It's going to be part of the new version of WordPress, I believe. A lot of people aren't liking it. Some are. Sometimes it just takes a little bit of a learning curve, but whatever. So some of the ones that I like to install myself, and you can either search by keyword or by the actual plugin name itself here, is Backup WP. It stands for Backup WordPress. And what that's going to do is make a backup of your copy, and you can schedule your backups to happen daily, weekly, monthly, however often. You can back up just the files, just the database, or both. Now there's always going to be times when you're going to want to maybe possibly have to refer to a old version of your website. Let's say your website gets hacked, or maybe you make some kind of mistake in your pages and you have to revert to something that you deleted by mistake. There's also times too where maybe you update a plugin. Plugin updates come out all the time. I'm always updating those because there's always new versions, new features, new things that they are doing to improve from being hacked, things like that, that you're going to want to update those plugins. And every once in a great while, there's a plugin that just conflicts with everything else on the website and kind of shuts it down or causes really funky coding going on. And you may have to go revert to an old version of the plugin. So I'll download a backup of the website, put the old plugin back in, and that's very, very helpful to have. So for this one, let's go ahead and install this. And then once it's installed, you got one more button you got to push here to activate it. So it's either install and just keep it, or activate it and actually use it. So you can see when I have an active plugin here, it actually turns blue, so I know which ones are active, which ones are not. And with Backup WordPress, this is the one that I was saying that's the only thing that I usually go into tools for. And it's going to go over backups. So this one's really simple to use. Now there are other options. Again, I'm not being paid to say any of this stuff. This is just the plugins that I use most often. You can see this is free, so again, I'm not going to get anything for it. These are just the ones that I recommend. There are other backup plugins. There are ones that do even more cool features. Use what you feel is you're comfortable with. If you're just getting started, this may be a good area to start with, and then if you're still looking for added features, you can go on and explore with other plugins and just see what else is out there and play around with them. But for this one, I can go into here and I'll always change the settings. So if I go into settings first, and I'll say, what do I want to back up? Do I want to do the database, just the files, or both? And I'll usually say both. And then schedule, you can either schedule it to automatically happen once a week, once a month. You can see you got all your options here, or just manually only. So like only when you want to manually go in and make an update. So if this is a blog that you're not in very often, maybe just set it to go manual, and anytime before you go and make any kind of updates to the website, you just manually make a backup of it. If it is something that you're working on all the time, you don't even want to have to think about it, just schedule it. Have it do once or twice a week and say, hey, just store like 2 or 3 versions of it so it's not just overwhelming your server and just having a ton of files on that server. Just have it just like 2 or 3, and it's going to delete the old ones, keep the new ones, and you're all set. Once you hit done, you can hit run now. It'll make a backup of your website, and again, just kind of has in this nice little package that you can download or keep right there on the server. Great plugin. Another one I would highly recommend, and I'll go back to plugins and add new, is going to be Yoast, and that is for your SEO, and that's going to do a couple different things for you here. And we're going to get into SEO a little bit later on in this series, but for right now, I would say go ahead and install Yoast. And I'm going to activate that. Now what that's going to do is a couple different things for us. And again, we're just going to touch on what it's doing for the most part right now. We'll get into some of the advanced features later on when we get into SEO. So now that I've got that installed, I'm going to go over to Posts. I'm going to add new. And what you're going to see that's a little bit different this time is below the blog post, you're going to see this Yoast SEO option down here. What this is going to let you do is actually customize how your post appears as if it were in the search engines. Now, as of right now, you'll see that this is it has no title, so it's just coming up with the domain name. So if you were in Google, you would notice it looks almost just like this. So let's say, so in Google, it may show up as this is my first post - online marketing concepts. So that might be a good title. And then the actual URL or the link that would go to it, that display is fine. But now I've got no copy down here for that little snippet, that little bit of information below the post or the Google search results. So I can go in and edit what that is. I can modify, this is the best post ever read. Okay, now what you want to see here is that you're getting this orange bar right now. Until that reaches kind of a green area, it's not the best optimized blog post meta description that you can have. And you can see this is what you would see if you did a Google search and that showed up. You'd want to have a little bit more information drawing users into your article. So you'd want to kind of continue to write more and more and more until you saw this turned green. Now it's not saying that that's the best copy, but it's saying that that is the optimal length for a description that people are going to want to see to possibly click on your post. Now if you do too much, you're going to see it's going to start to turn orange again. Now it's saying, oh, you've gone too far. So that's, Google only allows so many words and characters before it cuts it off. So just have just the right amount in there, find what that is, and have a very good description. Now it doesn't have to be exactly what's in your post, but it should be pulling something very similar to that. That's going to make readers want to come in. Some other things you can do is you can go on the side over here, you can have, when you link this link into Facebook, you can have what that title looks like in Facebook. So it can maybe be slightly different. You can also pull in a different image for Facebook. Some different things that you can use for SEO purposes. Again, we'll get into more of the details of Yoast SEO later on, but for right now, know that that's what that does, and that's a great plugin. There are other ones that do this and do it just as well, maybe better, maybe has other bells and whistles on it. This is the one mostly used by most bloggers and is very popular. The other thing it does up here, you can see that these two got put up here. We're saying the readability of this needs improvement, and the SEO is non-existent. So we'll get into all that stuff a little bit later on here. All right, so I've been talking a lot about security and commenting and things like that. One other plugin that I would definitely recommend is going to be, if I go to add new, I'll leave that post, is going to be a program or a plugin called WordFence. And what this does is really locks down your blog and does a lot of cool things. Actually, it also will do a scan for malware and viruses, which is very important. I've used to fix hacked sites before. The version right now that we can download is free, but then they can also, there's a paid version that can do a lot of extra things that are very cool and definitely worth the money. I think I have that for one website. I don't have it for all my websites. Most I just run the free version of it. But this is a great plugin as far as helping to control hacking and just really securing your website. So we've activated it's still thinking there. So we're activating that now. It takes a little bit to do because it does do so much. So over here on the left-hand side, you're going to see WordFence has its own option within the dashboard here. You will want to maybe tweak it out a little bit here, ask you for your name and information to get into, to save, to notify you of any kind of alerts or things that come up with it. Go ahead and enter that information, but again, by default, it'll actually lock down your site pretty well for the most part. You can go into the firewall and you can start to fine-tune that. You can also go into the scan, where it's going to scan your website for everything from outdated plugins to code that looks like it might be malicious on your website. A lot of great options here. Out of the box, it runs perfectly, but you can then go in and really fine-tune it. So those are some of the main plugins that I would use just for any kind of website. In the next video, we'll go through a couple that I would use for blogging and just more specifically for blogging. So stay tuned. When it comes to blogging, there are some other plugins I recommend that are more specific to bloggers and things that they want to do. Now, one note I want to make before we go too far is you need to be careful of the number of plugins that you use to run your website. The less you have, the better. The more that you have, the more it slows down your website. It'll affect your SEO, and the more conflicts you have potential for having. Each of these plugins will use a form of JavaScript and CSS and things like that. For the most part, they play well together. But again, the more that you have, the more chance are that there is something that may conflict. Not each of these are built by expert programmers. You may get one or two that kind of sneak in there that are just built by average people who maybe don't have the best intentions or are just not the best programmers, and they will conflict with other things. So definitely be careful of that and definitely limit the number that you use. So with that being said, here are a couple other plugins that I like to use as a blogger. Some you can even use this as a regular website, but again, a little bit more specific to bloggers. So I'll say add new. And it's actually one of the ones that are called out right here. It's called Jetpack by WordPress. I'm not going to go all the way through it right now because what you need to do is you first install it and then you connect it to a WordPress.com account. So you'll have to sign up with WordPress.com. You don't have to use it. You just need to have that username. And what it does is it gives you all sorts of really cool analytics about your website, telling you where people are coming from, what posts people are going to, the number of visitors, all that kind of stuff. It will also give you all sorts of additional widgets, things on the sidebar of your website, pop-up builders, all sorts of really cool options. I think there's even a paid version of it now where you can get it to back up your website off-site and do all sorts of other things too. So Jetpack is really kind of like a Swiss Army tool of plugins where it can give you all sorts of really cool added functionality to your website. A lot of bloggers use it, and there's a lot of functions that you can turn on and off within it. So play around with it, and definitely, turn off anything that you're not using within it, because it will slow the site down a little bit because there are so many features and it is such a big plugin. But it's a great plugin for the different things that you could be doing. Another one that I like to use, and this is, we'll do a kind of a sample search right here for, I don't know the exact name of it, so it's going to be social share. Okay. What I want to do is I want to have icons that are at the bottom of my blog post and kind of allow people to share my blog post if they like it. So there's a whole bunch of options, as you can see, because I just typed in a keyword. I want to go through like what I would go through if I didn't know exactly what I was looking for here. So as you can see, I just typed in a keyword and it came up with however it decides to display these things. I think it's maybe by, I don't know if it's a rating or what. So you, maybe just by keyword, probably in the title. And you can see if one of the first things I look at is the number of stars it gets, which can be a little bit deceiving because you want to see like, how many people are actually voting for that. And then how many people are actually using it or have actively installed it. So for this one, we've got 200,000 installs and like pretty much all 5-star ratings here. These guys have 60,000 with a lot of good stars. So really any of these, I'd say in the first 2-3 rows that you're looking at here would be a great option. But you know what? I really don't know what I'm looking for here. This is the first time I've looked for this plugin. I want to see maybe more of what it looks like, or read a little bit more about it. So what you can do is you can click on the More Details button here, and it comes with a pop-up that's going to show you some of the information about it. A lot of times I like to go to screenshots so I can kind of see what am I going to get into here. Is this really what I want? Oh, this is kind of cool. There's some different styles of buttons that I could add. Description looks pretty easy to do. It's got really good reviews. So that's a good possibility. I don't know what this one is. I'll click on More Details for this one. Here's some screenshots. Again, this is kind of cool. It's got those little buttons with account numbers next to them. I don't know. That's kind of cool. And you can go through and do that for all these different ones here. And once you find the one that you do like, you just simply click Install Now like we have for all the others. So I'll say Install Now. And then Activate. And keep in mind, just like I always say about the themes, the plugins are always going to work a little bit differently. When you install a plugin, see, this one's still thinking up here. When you install a plugin, it may show in the sidebar over here. It may get hidden underneath settings or underneath tools, underneath appearance or something like that. So if you don't see it right away, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll go to plugins. And I'll see my installed plugins. And I'll go ahead and scroll down and say, okay, so here's the settings. You can usually, most of these will have a settings option, and they'll go right to the plugin. And that'll kind of highlight where you're at so you know where to find it next time. So that one now turned red. I know this plugin has its own little call out on the left-hand side. And it looks like this one just walks me right through which icons do I want to show on my website. Just do Facebook and Twitter. So that's cool. I'll keep that on. This is for premium. Looks like you can do a paid version of this. We'll stick with the free one for now. Yeah, that all looks good. Cool. Save all settings. Now you can read through this one. I'm just kind of doing this one a little bit quickly. I've actually used this one before and I like it. But so now within the, if I've done this right, within the blog post itself, oops, I didn't finish adding it properly here. Oh, where shall they be displayed? Show icons after post. There we go. So I'll save that. And again, just kind of doing this fast for examples. You can choose your own. There's a whole bunch there to choose from. Yeah, it's still not showing up there. So again, I got to go through each of these steps here for it to be displayed properly. I'm just trying to knock this out quickly for you so you can see. But there were the area, the option where you could choose what they actually look like. There we go. So here's all the different options. So that's kind of cool. Shared dark, shared light. That's kind of fun. Black grunge looks like I can pay to upload to do those. So I'll save that. So there's all my plugins and things like that. One other one that you may want to do, and I talked about Jetpack as being the showing you all the different analytics, but really you want to use Google Analytics as well, maybe either in tandem with or in replacement of Jetpack, because you can get a lot more detailed information from Google Analytics, and there are a whole bunch of different ways that you can add your Google Analytics. We'll go through that more specifically here in the next video, but a plugin that I would recommend for that is if we went to Add New, there's a great plugin called Monster Insights. See this fun little icon right there. You can see it's been downloaded by over 1 million people. It's got a pretty good rating, and say install now. And again, you don't like this one, try a different one. But there are some cool options within this we'll get into when we get into the Google Analytics portion of this and getting into some of the advanced SEO. But those are kind of the core ones that I would recommend right now. If you ever want to look for other ones, there are some great places to do it. You can simply Google WordPress plugin and then the keyword of what you're looking for. You may find what you're looking for. Some people sell plugins from their website. There's also another website that I use called codecanyon.net. And here we can go into WordPress and we can see all sorts of plugins that they sell here. These are, anywhere from $5 to $40, I would say, that they range from, and they have all sorts of great integration. These are actually pretty well filtered out from any kind of crap plugins. These are all very good ones. You can see ratings on some of these. Looks like this one adds functionality to allow for Coinbase into your shopping cart for WooCommerce. We'll get into all that a little bit later on here, but some great options for plugins, a whole bunch of free ones. Start there. If you're still not finding what you're looking for, check out a site like this or just simply Google it. All right, now on to the actual blogging part of it. There's two different things I want to show you when it comes to blogging, and there's kind of two different theories behind it. There's blogging for the search engines to be able to find you properly, and then there's blogging for your readers, your own personal style, your own personal sound, and you kind of need to find a happy medium between the two. So finding your own style and writing for your readers, that's going to come on to you, and that's going to something you're going to develop over time. But for actually writing for search engines and to hopefully get found and to get those initial readers in the first place, you need to write so that the search engines find you easier and you give them kind of what they're looking for. So that's what I want to go through first. I'm going to break this down into two different videos here. So what I've got is a pre-written article that I have for another client, not that I wrote, something that we can use as an example here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this as the basis of optimizing a article on the web page in a very basic sense. So let's go ahead and just jump right into it. I'm going to create a new post here. And I'm going to show you all the different things that the search engines are looking for. So the first thing and the most important thing is going to be your title. This is everything. This is the first thing that people are going to see that's going to draw them into your page or your article or not, or is going to keep them from going in. Writing for the headline is really everything. If you Google that, you will find some great examples of headlines that work, that bring people in. You want to kind of stay away from clickbait, which is going to be the top 10 list of this and number 7 blew my mind, or you won't believe what happened to so-and-so. Those things are too kitschy that try to get people to click into your article. You want to be a little bit more professional, a little bit more unique, but still have keywords in the title of your article. So this is a good example of a header. 3 reasons. So it's a number. People love to see numbers. It just kind of it breaks it down, lets them know what they're getting into. 3 reasons you should invest in maintenance repair for your furnace. Now this has everything that the search engines will need, and it has everything that I think for the most part people would need. 3 reasons, maintenance, repair, and furnace. Those are going to be kind of the key words in there that are going to draw people in, and again, provide substance for the search engines to know what this is about. So let's think about these articles as we go through the next couple steps here as being like a high school book report. This is the title of your book report. All right, so let's get into the other parts here. So I'm going to go ahead and copy all this text that was from the article that was written. I'm going to go ahead and just paste it into here. Now, for the most part, this looks, well, it looks okay. I mean, it's just not really exciting. Everything is the same size, has the same distance, same color, all that kind of stuff. So what the search engines like to see, I should see an extra return there, is things using header tags. That's very, very important. These header tags are in here. And these, again, if you think along the lines of like a high school book report, these are the things that the heading 1 is the title of your book report. Heading 2 may be the title of a subtopic within that main title. And then as you go lower and lower, you can see each of these fonts get a little bit smaller, and header 3 is basically would be like a subheader of header 2, those kinds of things. So we really break down this stuff this way using these header tags. And what that does is it tells the search engines, okay, this is the main topic of the article. And then here are some main key points that are all titled header 2. And then things that relate to that header 2 would be considered a header 3 tag, and so on and so forth. Really, if you can have, usually by default, your title is a header 1 tag. Most themes will program it that way. If you can have one header 2 and maybe 2 or 3 header 3 tags, that'll be really good for the search engines. If you can add another one with a keyword or 2 in your header 4, that'd be great. I've really never used header 5 or 6, I don't think. I've never really gotten that deep into an article. But if you're planning on writing a deep, long article, that would be a great idea to do. So let's go ahead and read into here, and we can see, these little titles should be fairly short, so we don't really want to give it too much, too long of a sentence to give this header tag. But you do want to make sure whatever you choose is fairly short and also has your keyword in it. So let's say this whole article is about furnaces, so we want to make sure whatever our header 2 tag is going to be, because remember this is going to be our header 1 tag by default, whatever our header 2 tag is going to be has the word furnace in it. And this one actually works out really well because this kind of reiterates the 3 reasons, schedule preventative maintenance and repair of your furnace. So that associates those same keywords. That'd be a great header 2 tag. Now, because this is the 3 reasons, the 3 reasons, I'm going to go ahead and, because those are basically bullet points, those are subheaders of this subheader right here, I'm going to go ahead and just give those header 3 tags. For one, so they stand out nicely for readers, but also so that the search engines will see those as being important and will probably contain some of my keywords. Not always. You don't want to overstuff it. You don't want to put too much of that into there, but you can see that this one has life of your furnace. So that's a great one. Lower your monthly utility bills. That's all part of what we're talking about up here. 3. Keep your family safe and good health. All right, so that's important too. It doesn't have the word furnace in it or preventative maintenance, but it kind of like all goes along with the rest of this. Again, you don't want to overdo it for the search engines. They will actually start to penalize you if you start to put furnace in every single thing here. So those are kind of best practices doing those. Now, a couple other little things you can do that's really going to help you out would be to link to other important articles. So let's say, this is my very first post, which it really is, and I need to show some authority. I want to show that I'm actually helping people and providing links to relative resources that they can find. So just kind of reading through here for the first time, I can see manufacturer commands let's see. Oh, here we go. It's a perfect one. So here is something that may be very relevant to a reader, a recent research done by the EPA. So I'm just going to copy that. I'm going to open up a new tab. I'm going to do a Google search for them. All right, so the EPA has their own link. I'm going to go ahead and just copy that link. And I'm going to add a link to this to show that, hey, I'm trying to help my readers by, if they don't understand what the EPA is, here's a link to what it is. So pay attention to this part because you can do this a couple different ways. I've got the text highlighted that I want to link to. I'm going to click on the link icon, and in here I can just paste my URL. So I've pasted it in there. But if somebody clicks on this right now, by default, this page is going to close and the EPA website is going to come up. I want to change that by clicking on this little gear right here and say open this up in a new window. So that way my website stays open and a new link opens up to the EPA website. So that's going to help keep readers on my site if they want to come back to it, but it's also providing good reference to resources that people could use to make my articles seem very helpful. If you have a couple of those that link out to other web pages that are very high, very relevant, very important websites, usually are going to be like Wikipedia links, links to the actual company or organization or whatever it is that you're writing about. Those tend to be very good links to link out to. Google looks at those as being authoritative links. So if you could do a couple of those, the other thing would be to link to other articles and pages on your website that are relevant. Now, I don't have any information on this website so far about HVAC stuff or about any kind of thing regarding this article. In fact, I really don't even have any other pages just yet. But if I did, I would link to those other articles. Like sometimes you may see someone may, after like a subheader area like this, may say related, and then I'll say like, XXX, whatever the name of the article is here, and the link to that article. So maybe I wrote another article about, maintenance repair for your hot water tank as opposed to furnace or something like that people may find equally helpful. That also helps the search engines then see that link and then read through that and move over to that and maybe index that other article as well. So those are some of the top things to do for that. One other thing is going to be to have a relevant photo on your website that has some of this information on it. So what I'm going to do for the sake of this, I'm going to just Google, I'm going to Google an image of a furnace. Now, you do not want to just go doing this and just throwing any old photo on your website, because that is copyright infringement. You are not given rights to do that. But what you can do is maybe go to Google at images, and you can go into the tools, and you can check on the usage rights here and say labeled for reuse or reuse with modification. So I'm going to say, okay, so this was actually labeled that I could reuse this. Still a little bit of a gray area here, but sometimes this works. So here's one. Okay, this is a Flickr, so I can use this. So I'm going to grab that image, and I'm going to add that photo to my website. So let's say maybe that's going to be my featured image, and I'll also put it in the article itself here. So I'll say add media. I'm going to do a couple things. So I've got this image over here. It comes in with this crazy number. I'm going to rename it to just furnace maintenance. So having a good relevant name helps in the search results. I'm going to add that to my media manager. All right, so that's added over there. But one other thing I want to do down here is at least in the alt text, explain what that photo is. That's basically telling the search engines what your photo is. Without a good alt text, search engines don't know what an image is. They can't see things. They can just read text, they can understand text, but not images. So if I add some alt text of furnace maintenance and maybe even add that as a caption or description, I want this to be a full-size image. So I'm going to select that down there. Alignment, I could have this go to the left or to the right. I'm just going to say none. And then that's good right there. So I'll say insert that into my post, and we should see our image appear right in here. You can see that it added the caption. And all these things are great for the search engines. They're going to look at this and say, oh wow, he's got links, he's got header tags, he's got an image with an alt tag and a description. This is a well-optimized article. I could also just kind of click and drag and make that a little bit smaller there. And so I'm going to add this to uncategorized for right now. I want to do one other thing. I'm going to add my featured image. And okay, so good. So let's say I was like, you know what, this article rocks. I'm totally cool. I'm going to publish it. And let's see what it comes back with here. All right, so it published my article. I'm happy with it, but as I look over here, it's telling me that the readability needs improvement and the SEO is not available. So in the next video, I'm going to go through these more advanced features here and show you some ideas of things you can do to improve those two things. All right, so where we left off, we have this great article that we wrote, but we looked over here into what Yoast SEO added, and says, you know what, this is not very readable and there's no SEO available. So that's not good. So here, let's do this. Let's scroll down to the Yoast area and let's see what's going on here. So it's saying the readabilities, looks like a little unhappy face. All this up here, oh, we don't even have a meta description. We don't have a focus keyword. So you know what? I do know that my focus keyword, the keyword that I want this article to be about, is about furnaces. So let's try to keep it to like 1 or 2, at tops maybe 3 words. So I'll say furnace. All right, so it's giving me kind of an okay face right now. Is there anything else I could use in here? No, you know what, that's okay. So at least I've got a focus keyword, but this area right here I definitely need to fix. So let's edit this snippet area. This is what's gonna show up in the search engines. So I'm gonna click on that. Kind of okay with the title, but you know what, I really don't want site title, separator, page. Let's get rid of some of these up here. In fact, let's go ahead and let's call it just going to copy that down into there. So this is my title now. This is all in the green, so that means it's a good length. It has good keywords in it. I'm good with that. The slug, this is actually what your URL is going to be. So you can see that's all right up here. It's all the same thing going on up there. I don't need a lot of these kind of filler keywords in here. So let's go ahead and just remove any kind of unimportant keywords. So furnace, repair, maintenance, invest, and get rid of all this. 3 reasons. Well, I'm getting kind of an orange bar down here, so let's add a couple words back in. You should invest. Okay, so that's good, giving me a green bar, so that's good. Oh, I went into the wrong spot. 3 reasons. Oops. Start that over. This is your slug area right here. Let's get rid of some of those unimportant words. So furnace, repair, maintenance, invest, and then 3 reasons. Good. Now the description. So we have no description right now. Let's go ahead and pull down maybe what our H2 tag was. Let's see if that's enough words. We want to make sure that our keywords in this description. So right now I'm getting the green bar, so that's a good length. I know the word furnace is in there good. And actually, you know what? That just changed my focus keyword to green. So that means I've used it properly in the header, in the slug, and in the meta description here. And that it's appearing, you know, in a proper number of times. If I look over here, my SEO is good, but I still got the readability needs improvement. So let's go ahead and I'm just going to save this by saying update. I'm going to do one other thing here. Now you don't have to do this because this is a paid piece of software that I use. Not endorsing it in any way. I'm sure there's other great options out there, but it's this app called Hemingway. And what it does is allows you to put the copy, or any copy, you can just even start writing from it, and it's going to color code the text as being either difficult to read or maybe there's better words to use. Let's go ahead and take a look at it here. So where'd my... All right, so here's my original article. I'm just going to copy all this. I'm going to go ahead and put it in the Hemingway app, and I'm going to paste it in there. And now we can see that it's actually color coding this stuff. But the most important thing is, what grade readability is this right now? So right now, this is saying that this is like 10th grader language. You kind of want to aim for like anywhere from 3rd grade to 5th grade. I'm surprised to see that this saying aim for 9th grade is being okay. But it's showing you areas that you can improve this stuff. So anything that's in the dark red, it says they're very hard to read. This kind of yellow area, they're just kind of hard to read. This kind of more pinkish purplish area phrases, there's some alternatives, so it's going to give me alternative text to use here. Passive voice, green I don't worry too much about, we can take a look at. And then adverbs, it just depends. So let's say, okay, so I can come over here and see some of the smaller ones. It'll give me a, so let's say an adverb, use a forceful word. I can either just omit the word or leave it the way it is. But that's not going to make sense to delete that word, so I'm going to keep that one. But what I can do is I can go through all of this. So here's a good example. So here's one that has similar alternatives. Maximum may be considered kind of like a big word. So we'll say the greatest word. It gives me options to fill in that blank. Complex, greatest. Now it would not make sense to get rid of that. So in addition, maybe say also. So maybe I just don't need that complex of a word. Just, So be bold, don't hedge. It's telling me that, you really don't need to say just. So power to, instead of just do that, we can say omit the word and just do that. So what this is going to do is it's going to slowly start to take the grade level readability of this text down. And once I do that and fill it in, it's going to make this part more readable. And the search engines, believe it or not, actually look for that kind of readability and will rank your page kind of based on how well it's written. So be careful. Take time to write your article well. Write it for the lowest grade level that you can. Try to use simple words. Make sure that you're using your header tags. Try to add relevant links to external and internal pages. Add a photo that is relevant to the content. Give it maybe a description. At minimum, give it alt text. And that's really some of the best things that you can do to improve the search engine optimization of your article. All right, so one other thing I wanted to cover with article writing. Now, it depends on the type of blog, I guess, that you have. If this was something that was very personal to me and talked about my experiences while I was out snowboarding or doing whatever, then I would just be the writer on the website. I would not have anybody else come on. But let's say this is a news site. I want to write everything about sports. But I need someone to write business articles and lifestyle articles and all that kind of stuff. And we saw where you could add a user and you could add their role and change that so they could help contribute to the website. You could add editors and things like that. But where do you find those people? I mean, you don't really want to just go knocking on doors and asking people if they want to write for your blog. There are places where you can go to find articles and writers and great content, people who are very good at specific things too, specific industries or types of writing styles, or if they're good for writing SEO articles. So the two places I kind of go for that is on the lower end side, I would say iWriter. That's a good place to find decent articles. What you can do here is you deposit some money into your account and then you can order content. So I could say this, this is good for like a 1 or 2 kind of article at a time kind of thing. So I would give my article a title, say, look, I need someone to write an article about cloud computing or whatever. I know nothing about that. I want to find someone who can. So I'm going to give the article a title, cloud computing in the future. I don't know, whatever. And do I want this from a template? No. Okay, so you can set up templates for people to be able to come back to. What would you like? I would like an article as opposed to a rewrite or have someone write an ebook for you. What type of business or industry is this article about? Is this a thing about pets or about food and drinks or medical, whatever? You're going to find people who can write specifically to certain types of categories better than others. You get one keyword that you can focus on. So in the last example, we had the furnace website. This could be an article about furnaces, so I want that to be the main focus of this article. So I can also say how many articles do I want written, how long do I want the article to be, and what type of writer do I want. And this is kind of important. If you're just looking for just something cheap and quick, sure, go for the standard or premium. But personally, I would, if you want to actually have some quality content on your website, I would go for an elite or elite plus writer. Those are the people who've been around here for a while, have really good reviews, and also start to boost the word count on your article. Now this is going to drive the price up. You can see right now for a 500 word article, for just a premium writer, you're going to pay about $6, which really is not bad. It's nothing. But a good article for the search engines to really take it as an authority type of article, you're going to want to be around at least 1,000, if not 2,000 to 3,000 words. And you're going to want to go for an elite writer. So that quickly kind of takes the price up. But again, it depends on what kind of blog you're looking for, what kind of quality content you're looking for. This could be just filler stuff, or maybe just someone to get the ideas going for you and you would go in and edit it. Totally up to you, but it's a good place to start. Now here you can talk a little bit more about the project, what you're looking for, maybe give links to example articles that you're looking for them to write from. You can really fine tune it by getting into like what's the objective of the article. Do I want to inform or motivate or engage? Those kinds of things. I can send it to specific writers. If I've been working here long enough, I may have a couple writers like saved. I can always target them and say, hey, do you want to write this for me? and then basically you place your order, and then within I'd say probably 24 hours at the most, it seems like, depending on how long your article is and how much research is required, you're probably going to get an email that says, hey, come check out your article. And what's great is you can go in, you can review the article, and if it's just like absolutely horrible, you can reject it, get your money back, and have it reposted for someone else to write. You can request a rewrite, or you can just accept it and say that's awesome. So again, this is good for like, onesie twosie kind of projects. Personally, I would go into something like Upwork, where people can, you can hire writers to do like an ongoing basis. So you could give them, log into your website. You could say, hey, I want to have you write an article once a week about this and this and this. Everybody's going to be rated based on like how well they've done in the past. So you can really start to sort out people that way. They're going to come to you first. You're going to put the job out there and say, hey, I need a writer for this on an ongoing basis. You're going to get 20, 30, 40 people all applying to your job. They're going to tell you how much they're going to charge you per article or per hour, and they're going to tell you what their experience is in writing certain things. They're going to give you examples of writing, and you can kind of feel them out. You can talk to them. You can, do a little Skype chat or something like that. You can test them out on a, 1 or 2 article basis. That's what I've done before. So this would be a great place for like ongoing work, whereas iWriter was good more for like a 1 article at a time kind of thing. Both are great options to find writers for your website. And again, remember just to come back and set them up with a specific level of user. Don't give them admin rights unless you absolutely need to. Add them as an author or a writer or contributor, and that'll get you where you need to be. Alright, so at this point we've gone through and we've built our blog, we've installed it, we've purchased a domain name, purchased hosting, we've learned how to get articles on there and use WordPress, we've learned how to optimize our articles, and we've learned how to get our articles out to the public so everybody can see your stuff and you can start to get some great traffic from your articles. Now is when you have to kind of evaluate where you want your blog to go. Are you happy just having it be like an online journal where people can read it and participate in it? Or maybe are you looking to make some money from it? So a lot of people write blogs kind of with the sole purpose or maybe half the purpose in being to make money from it. And there's a bunch of different ways that you can do it. And this is another landscape that's constantly changing. So some of the things I'm going to show you here may be relevant now. Maybe the companies will change, but at least kind of get some ideas from what I'm going to show you here and kind of implement it, see how it's going to work best for you, because there's kind of cons and pros and cons to each of these options here. I'm going to talk through some of those here, but you need to find out what's going to work best for your blog specifically, just because, again, you don't want people coming to your site and having it look overly advertised or maybe just kind of spammy from just having too many links, and people will really start to kind of downgrade your content thinking that you're writing it just to get clicks or just to get people to purchase stuff. People want to feel like they're actually being informed and not just sold to. So kind of take all this stuff with a grain of salt and see what's going to work best for you. So the first thing I want to show you is adding banner ads to your website. Now, it's probably one of the oldest forms of advertising for online websites, and a lot of people use this. Personally, I've never found it to be a great source of revenue. People get what's called banner blindness, where they just kind of stop seeing banners after a while. They're so used to seeing things rotating and flipping and blinking, or just the sidebar area where an ad usually appears, where they just immediately click off of it, or if a pop-up comes off, they get rid of it, or they just don't even look at the sidebar because they know it's where all the ads are. Again, people that don't really want to be sold to, they want to find good content and kind of move on. But if there's something that's relevant to them, then they may have more of a chance of clicking on it because it may relate to the story. So one of the best places to do that is Google AdSense. Now, if you have a Google account, which you should at this point, because it's important to have analytics set up in your website and a sitemap created for your website, and all those things you're going to want to submit to Google. So having a Gmail account is going to be how you get into that. If you have that, I would also apply for an AdSense account. Now, some people get these right away. Some people say that your blog has to be up for a certain amount of time, or you have to have a certain amount of content. Maybe wait until you get a little bit of traffic coming to your website. Maybe wait till you've got 5 or 10 posts on your website before you try applying to this. And these guys can deny you for just random reasons. They can also be very particular once you have an account set up as far as just all of a sudden canceling your account and taking the money that you had in the account because they think that maybe people are clicking on your banners maliciously or you're clicking on your banners. All that stuff can get you banned pretty quick from AdSense, but on the flip side of it, AdSense is a great source because they look at the content that's on your website. So if you're writing an article about food or cooking or something like that, they're going to serve relevant banners according to the content that's on your website. So again, you have a cooking website, they're going to show banners that have information about pots and pans or food or different things like that that is relevant to that article. So definitely consider AdSense, but if you don't want to do AdSense, there are a lot of other options out there. These are just a few of them. Again, these change from day to day. There's always something different going on out there. Media.net's a good one. These guys have different types of banners that may work on your website, maybe a little bit better than Google. But again, this is up to you to kind of take a look at, see what you can apply for, and what's actually going to work best on your website. This is a good company here. Infolinks is not a bad one. I've used this one before too. They have different types of banner ads. They have some very common ones, but they also have like banner ads that come up on the sidebar of the website or maybe that pop up from underneath. They have all different kinds, and they're always changing their types of banners as well. Pretty easy to get into. They make a pretty decent amount of money from when people click on your banners, but it's a good resource to use. Revenue Hits, that's another good one. Different types of banner ads that they have. Consider taking a look at them. Now I'm going to put a list of all these websites in the account here so you can download it. But again, remember that these may change from day to day. Chiquita's been around for a long time. I'm not a big fan of their banners, but some people swear by them and some people have good success with them. Again, it just depends on what's going to work best for you. Adversal, another good company. They have different types of banners as well. Maybe take a look at them. Clicksword.com, another older art advertising company. It's been out for a while. They've got all different kinds of solutions, so definitely take a look at them. Bidvertiser, they're a good one. Again, you can monetize your traffic by having all sorts of different types of ads. You can see they've got pop under ads and domain name redirects and all different ways that you can make money from them. Last one is IntelliLinks. Again, just different kinds of banner ads and things that you can add to your website. So take a look at these guys, at least start here, but feel free to do a search as well for different types of online advertising or advertising companies, because again, everyone may offer something a little bit different, both in the amount of money that you get every time somebody clicks on one of these banners, but also there's a different payout rate. So maybe one will say, hey, as soon as you make 25 bucks, we'll send you a check. Another one may be a minimum of $100. Just kind of feel them all out. Feel free to kind of mix and match some of these different options here and see what works best for you. Alright, so in the last video we took a look at a bunch of different banner ad companies that you could use. Apply to them, see who accepts you. Some of those banner ad companies, they're looking for a specific type of blog or website to post their ads on, so don't feel bad if you're getting rejected from some of these. Definitely look around, find out what works best for you. Once you have one of those, I would suggest using a plugin like this. Doesn't have to be this one, but this one works well. I've used this one before. It's called Quick AdSense. And what it does is allows you to put banner ads into different parts of your blog post very easily and without having to manually put them in every single article. So now they're not taking any of the money from your banner ads or anything like that. You just get this free download, you plug it into your website, very easy to install. And once you get into your blog post, here's kind of an example of what it's going to look like. You can switch over to text view. And what you're going to get is different places where you would place the ad itself. So maybe this is off in the widget, or it's at the beginning, middle, or end of the blog post. It's nice to have those show up in different areas so people aren't just getting inundated with ads at the very beginning, or maybe they don't wait till the very end. You can kind of mix and match in the middle. You can also just inject the code right wherever you want it. So maybe if there was a relevant banner ad that you saw that you were getting and you had an article that pertained to it, maybe you'd want to put that in that certain spot. So Quick AdSense is a great way to go. Again, take a look at some of the other plugins as well. You can just do a search for Google Ads or AdSense or ad placement, something like that within WordPress, and you're going to get to see where those go. Now, ads are not the only way that you can make money from your website. And that's what I want to take a look at, are some of the other options that you can do to make money from your website. This is a site called cj.com or commissionjunction.com. It's one of the bigger sites where different companies come to them and they look for people to do things like write articles about their product and then link to them. And what they do is they become kind of the middleman on this whole process, where maybe I wanted to do an article about, I don't know, dentists or contact lenses or something like that I thought would be relevant to my readers, and I could request to join their program, where if somebody clicks and actually purchases, now this is not just a click, this is actually clicking and then purchasing a product, they're going to track this information and I'm going to get a bigger commission on that. So let's go take a step back and think about the ads that we just talked about in the last video. AdSense, Chiquita, all those different companies, when you click on their ads, you're going to get anywhere from a penny to maybe a couple dollars for that one click. In the instance of a company like this, like Commission Junction here, you could get anywhere between $5 and $100, maybe more, maybe less, just depends on the company and the product itself. But you're going to get that kind of money as soon as somebody makes a purchase. So if you have a really good article really promoting something like, you know, dentist or contact lenses, or again, there's tons and tons and tons of different companies in here, you're going to get paid a much bigger commission on it. So you can see over here in this right-hand column, they're going to show you the average 7-day estimated cost per click is 6.91 British pounds, I believe is what that is. I have to change this over to US dollars. Here's some US dollars. So here's a case where on average people are getting about $2.40 for a lead on this one, whereas opposed to Got Junk is getting almost $70 per purchase. So again, somebody clicks on this link from your website, Commission Junction will track that information, and if somebody actually makes a purchase, you're going to get a big old check for almost $70 right there. So here's another one, Ink Farm. Their average cost per payment that they're giving out is almost $120 commission. So a lot of different companies in here, a lot of good ones. All you have to do is come over to this area over here and you can search for things. So maybe if you have a blog about, I don't know, like yoga, we can see if there's any kind of relevant yoga. Oops, maybe I typed that in the wrong spot. Yoga, let's clear that one out. Okay, so here's a whole bunch on fitness. Guessing maybe some of these companies either sell yoga products, or maybe I'm just getting a bad filter here, but we can actually see, so it's 24-hour fitness, almost $30 US dollars for every time somebody signs up through their website. So a lot of people do write articles specifically for these types of things, and they get, you know, good commission checks, $90, you know, $17, $42. Again, this is not cost per click, this is cost per actual acquisition. So now there are some other options up here as well. I do like, this one's one of my more favorite. Once you've built up a blog and you've got a decent following, you can actually show the amount of traffic that you're getting, different things like that. You can, on your website, offer to have paid guest posts. Now this is, you can do this different ways. You can have a PayPal plugin in here, or you can do basically kind of filter people out first and then ask for money later on. But you can have this guest post area on your website, have a nice little contact form that explains what you're looking for on your blog, and somebody can submit an article that could be, it's probably going to have some kind of paid link in it. So you want to filter those out, make sure there's nothing too spammy in that link. But if the blog article fits your website and you feel like you like it, you can then suggest that you would like to make $10, $20, $30 off that article for you to post it as a sponsored article. So this is one way to do it, just kind of filtering people out like this. What people do kind of on the flip side of it is they will Google, in quotes, guest post or guest writer, something like that, and they're going to find websites that offer guest posting, and people will start to find your website and they'll take a look at it and say, you know what, this kind of fits the content that I'm looking for. I would like to submit a guest post, and they will then pay you to do it, or you can offer it for free for a little while. But it's a good way to make money. I find it's a lot nicer than having ads on your website. It looks a little bit more natural. It could even look like you wrote the article, or just extra content for you to put on your website. Maybe you're a little bit slow in writing. Having paid guest posts is a nice way to keep your blog active. Now, if you are blogging about something, I don't know, maybe more creative, craft-like, different things like that, you can actually sell things on your WordPress website. Now, this could be a whole separate training series installing WooCommerce or an online shopping cart like this, but a lot of people do blog to then talk about products that they sell or make or whatever the case is. And you can make this shopping cart very easily by using this WooCommerce WordPress plugin. You simply install it on your website. It walks you through how to set it up and how to basically just plug in any kind of credit card information that you want, shipping information. It's very, very robust. It's a great, great plugin, and you can sell pretty much anything on your website. I've helped people set up these types of shopping carts for everything from cosmetics to comic books to regular books or just things that they had written themselves. You can sell one item. You can sell hundreds of items in here. So the alternative would be to go to something like a Shopify or actually a full paid website where you can sell your products on there. This is a better way where it's a little bit cheaper. You're not paying as much as like Shopify. You just pull this plugin right into your website, install it. It's very, very simple to do. A lot of people then will also blog and then link to external sources. So something like Etsy, where again, they're making different products. People are then selling them. They can maybe write about them and then link over to places like this where they have their own Etsy shopping cart site. This takes the hassle out of having to have that shopping cart on your website itself and having maybe like an SSL or other things that you're going to have to get. It really kind of eases the whole payment processing situation by using a website like Etsy. You could also link to eBay or Amazon or different places where you can sell products. So just remember that these guys take a small portion of whatever money you make, whereas if it's on your website, you get to keep all the profits. One of the last places I'm going to show you here is a company called Adsy. And this is there's a lot of companies like this, but this is one that I use a lot of times where maybe I want to get relevant links to my website. So I would post an article of mine onto other people's websites, but you can also list your website on here so that people can then choose to purchase basically placements of links or articles on your website. It's very similar to the one we talked about before with the guest posting. This is just a marketplace that gets your information out there in front of other people, getting them to notice your website, and then purchasing that, again, that spot on your website to post an article. I really like this one a lot. Again, I kind of use it because it looks more natural. What you can do is come in here, you can look for websites, or people can look for websites that have a certain domain authority or page authority, the amount of links that they are looking for, the actual categories that they're looking for. So again, this kind of filters out a lot of people. People can say, oh, I'm looking for a website about food to be able to post my guest post on. And you can see, let's go ahead and just do one here. So we'll say we want this to be in English. We want to do category of food. I'm not too worried about the domain authority for this example. And I'll say search. And scroll down, you can see people are charging $114 to have a single article posted on their website. $171, $214. So, oh goodness, $714 to post an article on their website. So, off the grid news, wow. So there's a lot of opportunity to make a lot of good money on here once you have a decent website that's up and going. So you can see really what the big difference is here is the domain authority and the page authority. So the higher domain authority that you have, the more people will want to put content on your website, get their links on your website. See, this one's a big old 66 domain authority. That's awesome. So again, they're charging $714 to do that. A lot of good money to be made from blogging in here. So hopefully that kind of helps show you some different ways. It's very simple to make money from your website. Of course, you can always go more in depth, and there's a lot of other companies that you can use. I just wanted to touch on some of the big ones here, and hopefully that helps. So I really hope this has been helpful to you. We've walked through a lot of steps here, and like I have said many times throughout these recordings, is that things are going to change constantly. There will always be other resources for these same kinds of things. So no matter what version, how old this video is, you can always find that the basic principles will always be the same, but you can always find very similar different companies that do the same thing, different plugins that do the same thing, different themes that do the same thing. You just have to do a little bit of searching. Sometimes you just need to be pointed in the right direction to do that. So I wish you the best of luck in your blogging career. Hopefully you take advantage of some of the resources that I've posted along with these videos here, and hopefully you have an awesome blog. I'd love to check it out, so feel free to ask any questions that you have that come up. Otherwise, I wish you the best in all of your blogging success.